Chapter 277. The 3 people and 1 tiger arrived at Jadesong Mountain. Before they even landed, they sensed intense spiritual energy fluctuations coming from the east side of the mountain range. Clearly, there were people fighting. Jade Pine Mountain's defensive barrier had already been activated, and no one outside could enter. Wang Daoyuan ordered Yun Yi to carry the 2 of them high up in the sky to avoid being ambushed by other demonic beasts. He then rode on his sword and went to the battle area to check the situation. When they reached the easternmost part of Jadesong Mountain, they saw the lightning ape fighting 2 high-grade Tier 2 demonic beasts and 3 mid-grade Tier 2 demonic beasts. The thunder ape had also become an upper-grade Tier 2 demonic beast. It wielded a long staff in its hand. This staff was a middle-grade Tier 2 Dharma artifact, and its main material was the golden silk jade peach branch. At the 2 ends of the long staff were iron hoops made of glazed flame mysterious iron, a material with the dual attributes of gold and fire, and there were also half-inch long thorns on the hoops. This long rod was called the glazed flame mysterious iron rod. It was specially forged by Zhao Liang for the lightning ape. Because the thunder ape was of the lightning attribute refining materials were too rare. Most people would have a hard time finding them, so they could only use the hardest materials to refine them. The glazed flame mysterious iron rod didn't have any other functions. Its biggest feature was its sturdiness. Of course, the thunder ape didn't bother to use any special abilities. Although this rod was simple, when combined with the thunder ape's powerful strength and nimble body, its power was not small. Moreover, he was dealing with demonic beasts that didn't know how to use magic tools. The thunder ape was at a disadvantage as the demonic beasts outnumbered it. However, the clansmen guarding the eye of the formation did not just stand by and watch. They controlled the formation and used the baleful gold soul-severing sword and the blazing gourd to attack the demonic beasts. The demonic beasts also knew that the array was not to be trifled with, so they did not dare to get too close to the array. Once the lightning ape couldn't hold on any longer, it would retreat to the front of the formation to rest. Once it had more or less recovered, it would continue to fight with the demonic beasts. Wang Daoyuan observed from the sky for a long time and found that these demonic beasts were furious. Why did it feel like the thunder ape was the one who provoked them? Why did it feel like they were chasing after the thunder ape? This seemed like something the lightning ape would do. That fellow often bullied other demonic beasts around the Linji Mountain. The demonic beasts around Linji Mountain were relatively weaker. Even if they were bullied, they did not dare to speak up. Most likely, if he were to continue doing this on Jadesong Mountain, there would be too many demonic beasts around and they would be too strong to swallow their anger. However, this was also a good opportunity. Usually, when he tried to lure these second-level high-grade demonic beasts, they would stay in their nests and not come out no matter what. He didn't dare to go in and fight, in case he was blocked by the other demonic beasts in the cave. Now that this group of demonic beasts had left their nest and ran to the foot of Jade Pine Mountain, they were courting death. Now that there were clansmen on the mountain, some secrets could not be exposed. The Golden Rock Wrestling Dragon technique was the only spell that didn't expose its secrets and still had extremely powerful destructive power. During the duel between the 2 sects, the Golden Rock Wrestling Dragon technique had shone brilliantly. The entire state of Zhao knew about his return, so there was nothing to hide. He condensed the shadow of the golden rock in the air and then flew down on his sword. Although demonic beasts had weak divine senses, they usually had unique senses in terms of vision, hearing, smell, and so on. Wang Daoyuan didn't try to hide himself, and the demonic beasts had already discovered him. However, he was high up in the sky, and the demonic beasts' divine senses were not strong enough, so they did not know what his cultivation was like. Seeing that he didn't make a move, he didn't think much of it. At this moment, he used the Golden Rock Wrestling Dragon technique and swooped down. As he got closer, the demonic beasts felt the intense spiritual power fluctuations from the Golden Rock's shadow and were somewhat shocked. The second-rank mid-grade demonic beast wanted to escape, but the remaining 2 second-rank superior-grade demonic beasts were more confident in their own strength. With their advantage in numbers, it would be easy to deal with a late-stage foundation establishment and a second-rank superior-grade spirit beast. Although the Golden Rock's shadow was very intimidating to demonic beasts, it only looked scary to terrestrial demonic beasts. It did not have the kind of suppression that came from the depths of their bloodline. The two second-rank demonic beasts thought that they could take 2 hits. After all, the shadow formed by a spell couldn't compare to them in terms of physical strength. These two second-rank superior-grade demonic beasts were both golden-striped tigers. Their size and cultivation were about the same, so they might be from the same nest. Tiger-type demonic beasts were among the best in terms of combat strength among their peers. Golden-striped tigers were metal-type demonic beasts. Their fur was white, and their stripes were golden. Their claws and teeth were comparable to second-rank superior-grade magic weapons. Coupled with their powerful physical strength, few demonic beasts of the same level could match them in terms of physical strength. These two golden-striped tigers also lived in Fallen Dragon Ridge. The two mountains they occupied were very close to each other, both on the east side of Jade Pine Mountain. Wang Daoyuan swooped down rapidly. With the Golden Rock's shadow in front, the two golden-striped tigers did not dodge. Instead, they were prepared for a physical fight. When the Golden Rock's shadow was 50 to 60 feet away from the golden-striped tigers, Wang Daoyuan controlled the Golden Rock's shadow and released 100 feather blades to attack one of the golden-striped tigers. The golden-striped tiger that was attacked was covered with silver spiritual energy. It stood up like a human and slapped with its front paws like a cat. The golden-striped tiger's physical strength was not weak. Its two paws slapped rapidly, creating afterimages. Soon, it had slapped down 70 to 80 feather blades. The remaining feather blades hit the golden-striped tiger's body, but the silver spiritual energy on its body blocked them. The feather blades did not penetrate the silver spiritual energy. The golden-striped tiger was unharmed and let out an excited roar. Wang Daoyuan was taunted by a big white cat, so he directly threw out the remaining 900 feather blades. Then, he took out a jar of spirit peach stew and drank a few mouthfuls to recover his spiritual energy. When the other demonic beasts saw that the feather blades were only a so-so, they became spirited. The 5 demonic beasts blocked the feather blades together. Wang Daoyuan's main goal was to deal with the two golden-striped tigers. Most of the feather blades were aimed at them. Only 100 or so feather blades hit the 3 mid-grade rank 2 demonic beasts. The 3 mid-grade rank 2 demonic beasts were instantly turned into beehives. The two golden-striped tigers could not block many of the feather blades. Most of the feather blades hit their bodies. The silver spiritual energy shield was broken. The 2 high-grade rank 2 demonic beasts were beaten black and blue. It was difficult for them to even stand up. The Thunder Ape was bullied by the 2 golden-striped tigers for a long time. How could it let them go so easily? It swung the glazed flame mysterious iron rod and hit the tiger's head a few times. The 2 golden-striped tigers' heads split open, and there were no longer any signs of life. Seeing that the battle was over, the people on the mountain removed the defensive shield. Yun-Yi carried the 2 of them and landed on the mountain. Wang Daoyuan pried off the teeth and claws of the 2 golden-striped tigers. These were good materials for refining high-grade rank 2 artifacts. He didn't care about the remaining materials, but the clansmen on the mountain cared. Jade Pine Mountain had already opened up more than 200 mu of spiritual fields. 500 to 600 ordinary clansmen had been moved here. There were also more than 10 cultivators here to take care of the spiritual fields and cut spiritual trees. Then, Wang Daoyuan ordered Yun-Yi. He brought Zhao Liang and 8th sister to the cave residence he had previously opened and let them cultivate in seclusion here. Zhao Liang entered the cave residence first and began to build his foundation. Wang Daoyuan guarded him outside, so the defensive restriction in the cave residence was not opened. In order to prevent being disturbed by foreign demonic beasts when building his foundation, Wang Daoyuan ordered the brothers guarding the formation eye to open the defensive shield of the 5 elements dragon lock formation. An hour later, a spiritual energy vortex with a diameter of 50 to 60 feet appeared above the cave residence. Zhao Liang had 3 spiritual roots. This spiritual energy vortex was much smaller than when 8th uncle and 9th aunt were building their foundation. His talent was naturally not as good as 8th uncle and 9th aunt. After a quarter of an hour, the spiritual energy vortex suddenly disappeared. This was a sign that the breakthrough had failed. After the spiritual energy vortex disappeared, the spiritual energy in Zhao Liang's dantian exploded. Although Zhao Liang had taken the foundation establishment pill and his life would not be in danger, it was inevitable that his meridians and dantian would be damaged. He was already over 70 years old, so it was not impossible for him to have more serious injuries. Wang Daoyuan immediately rushed into the cave residence and helped Zhao Liang protect his meridians and dantian. 8th sister was stomping her feet outside anxiously, but she did not dare to enter rashly. She was a peak chi refinement cultivator, so she couldn't help even if she went in. She would only interfere with Wang Daoyuan's rescue. Chapter 278. As soon as Wang Daoyuan entered the cave, he saw that Zhao Liang's face was in pain, and the spirit energy in his body was fluctuating violently. In this situation, the spirit energy would soon erupt. But now was not the time to hesitate. He directly sent his spiritual sense into Zhao Liang's dantian to suppress the spirit energy that was running amok. With his spiritual sense that was comparable to a peak foundation establishment cultivator, it was not difficult to suppress the violent spirit energy of a failed foundation establishment cultivator. Zhao Liang felt that the spirit energy in his body was no longer running amok, and his meridians and dantian were no longer in unbearable pain. He slowly opened his eyes and saw Wang Daoyuan's figure. He was about to speak, but Wang Daoyuan cut him off. "No need for nonsense. I'm only helping you temporarily suppress the spirit energy that has gone out of control. Do you plan to deal with this spirit energy now, or wait until my spiritual sense is exhausted and the medicinal effect of the foundation establishment pill is exhausted, and then directly explode and die?" Hearing this, Zhao Liang naturally did not dare to be negligent. He asked nervously, "What should I do?" Wang Daoyuan smiled. "Do you cultivate any spells that consume large amounts of spirit energy? Feel free to use them. Your problem is that there is too much spirit energy in your body. Your body cannot bear it, and you cannot control your spiritual sense. Just use up the excess spirit energy." Zhao Liang did not respond. Violent spirit energy fluctuations appeared between his hands. After a while, a fiery red ball of spirit energy condensed between his hands. He did not release the ball of spirit energy. Instead, he continued to pour the spirit energy in his body into the ball of spirit energy. Only when the ball of spirit energy reached the limit of his spiritual senses' control did he release it. The crimson ball of spirit energy instantly turned into the illusion of a flaming bird with a wingspan of 50 to 60 feet. This flaming bird was shaped like a red-crowned crane, but it only had one leg. Its specific appearance was not very clear. Wang Daoyuan recognized this bird. It was the legendary divine bird, Beiyuan. When it appeared, it indicated that a great fire was about to break out. After the Beiyuan divine bird illusion took shape, it kept circling in the cave. It spat out flames, igniting the rocks around the cave. Wang Daoyuan also used the water dragon technique to extinguish all the flames in the cave. After a quarter of an hour, Zhao Liang withdrew the Beiyuan illusion and said, "I'm fine now. Thank you for your help, Daoyuan. Otherwise, I'd have to recuperate for a few years before I could try to build my foundation again." But now, even though he failed to build his foundation, he's still completely unharmed. Wang Daoyuan laughed and said, "It's a small matter. I can't just watch brother-in-law get seriously injured. However, your Beiyuan divine bird's shadow is not weak. The Zhao royal clan plays with water. I've never heard of them having such a trick." Zhao Liang replied. "This isn't an inheritance of the Zhao clan, and it was passed down to me by my master. I heard that he obtained it from killing a Violet Palace realm cultivator all those years ago. Since it's not master's direct inheritance, nor is it something from the divine weapon pavilion, why don't I pass it to you?" Wang Daoyuan waved his hand and said, I wouldn't dare. If I learn Lei Yan's magic without his permission, I'm afraid he'll take care of me. Zhao Liang shook his head and said with a smile, I understand Master's temperament. He actually really wants to take you as his disciple. It's just that your cultivation method is very advanced, and he can't give you a better cultivation method. You're a cultivator with 5 spiritual roots, so he won't be able to teach you too much. He feels that taking you as his disciple will be hindering your future. From the moment he gave you his refining experience, I can be sure that he already sees you as his disciple. He didn't care about a spell that he had snatched from others. I'll pass this magic to you, and you can just let me see your refining experience. Wang Daoyuan looked at Zhao Liang with a strange expression and said, Brother-in-law, you're waiting for me here. You know that I like to train in all kinds of magic, so you use this thing to tempt me in exchange for refining experience. Alright, I've already memorized this refining experience. I was originally going to give it to you. You're also Lei Yan's disciple, so he shouldn't blame me for passing this thing to you. Finished speaking, he took out a beast skin book and handed it to Zhao Liang. Zhao Liang also took out a jade slip and handed it to him. Wang Daoyuan took the jade slip and asked, Your failure this time should be caused by your spiritual sense being unable to continue compressing spiritual energy. You've been refining for so many years, your spiritual sense shouldn't be weak. How did this happen? Zhao Liang smiled bitterly and said, When I was young, I saw my parents and relatives die one by one, leaving behind an inner demon. When I was concentrating on compressing spiritual energy, the scene of my parents being killed would appear in front of my eyes. Then, would be distracted and lose control of my spiritual energy was caused by my distraction. Daoyuan, you're experienced and knowledgeable, so do you know how to eliminate an inner demon? Wang Daoyuan thought for a while and said, I've had an inner demon since I was young. When I was 20, I participated in the Battle of Guiyan Valley. 7 of my granduncles died in battle. I was stimulated and saw through the confusion in my heart, eliminating the inner demon. Your situation is really hard to say. You can use a magic tool to suppress the inner demon. When you're building your foundation, the inner demon's influence is far less than when you're establishing your violet palace. A low-grade second-tier magic tool to suppress inner demons should be enough. Zhao Liang nodded and said, We'll talk about it later. It's useless for me to continue building my foundation now. Let Dao Shu build her foundation first. Finished speaking, he transmitted his voice to Wang Dao Shu. Wang Dao Shu immediately ran in. When she saw Zhao Liang safe and sound, the dark clouds on her face dissipated and she smiled. Zhao Liang gave her a storage pouch and said, Dao Shu, I'm troubled by an inner demon and can't build my foundation for the time being. You go first. Wang Dao Shu didn't refuse. She nodded and took the storage pouch. Wang Daoyuan and Zhao Liang walked out of the cave and waited for Wang Dao Shu to build her foundation. An hour later, a whirlpool of spiritual aura with a diameter of about 5 feet appeared above the cave. Eighth sister was a cultivator with 3 spiritual roots. Her main spiritual root was a wood spiritual root, so her talent could only be considered average. 2 hours later, the whirlpool of spiritual aura gradually became smaller and finally disappeared. Wang Daoyuan smiled and said, My sister is still smarter. You have to work hard. You don't have to worry about magic tools to suppress inner demons. When my refining level reaches high-grade second tier and I refine a few flying boats for the family, I'll go to the north of the mountain to gain experience. The extreme cold ice in the north of the mountain has many good things to suppress inner demons. I'll bring some back for you. Zhao Liang smiled and said, Thank you, 7th brother. A quarter of an hour later, 8th sister came out of the cave and threw herself into Zhao Liang's arms, saying, Brother Liang, I succeeded. Wang Daoyuan left the scene on his sword and transmitted a message to the two. The family has been in the limelight for many years. Going too far is as bad as falling short. It's better to keep a low profile. You two stay here for the time being and don't easily show your faces outside. I'll leave this cave to you. I'll go to the north of the mountain and open up another one. The original cave was in the middle of the south of the mountain. Wang Daoyuan ran to the east of the mountain and opened up a new cave. He had just killed 5 demonic beasts, so no other demonic beasts would dare to court death. In order to prevent the Thunder Ape from attracting more demonic beasts, Wang Daoyuan sent him to the east of Jade Pine Mountain to take over the territory of the 2 golden-striped tigers. For the time being, the family didn't have enough manpower to develop more territories. They could only let the Thunder Ape occupy that area and harm the surrounding demonic beasts. This was to prevent other high-grade second-tier demonic beasts from occupying the mountain and threatening the safety of Jade Pine Mountain. Wang Daoyuan went to the newly opened cave and practiced refining techniques. He wanted to become a high-grade second-tier weapon refiner as soon as possible and repair the real wave-chasing boat. Then, he would build a few more flying boats for the family to facilitate the family's business expansion. Also, he practiced the spells that he exchanged with Zhao Yang. The fire attribute was a powerful attack spell, but Wang Daoyuan didn't have a powerful fire attribute spell. The only high-grade spell that was related to the fire attribute was the Meteor Fall spell, which was mainly used to smash people. Now that he had a high-grade fire attribute spell, how could he let it go? Chapter 279. Wang Daoyuan took out the jade slip he had exchanged with Zhao Yang and used his divine sense to explore it. The Dharma spell recorded in the jade slip was called the Heaven-Burning Divine Flame Technique. It condensed the image of the divine bird, Beiyuan, and controlled the flames to attack the enemy. Other divine birds that played with fire mostly had their own unique divine flames. However, the Beiyuan divine bird was different. The flames it produced were not powerful. The Beiyuan divine bird's most powerful ability was to control external flames and make them stronger. This heaven-burning divine flame technique was a level 3 Dharma spell created by a peak Zifu realm cultivator. He had once raised a spiritual bird with the bloodline of the Beiyuan divine bird. He imitated the attacks of that spiritual bird to create the heaven-burning divine flame technique. The Beiyuan image condensed by the heaven-burning divine flame technique also imitated the Beiyuan divine bird's ability to control fire. If it was cast near the lava of a volcano, the heaven-burning divine flame technique would be extremely powerful. It could even surpass many level 4 Dharma spells. However, if there was no geographical advantage, its power would not even be ranked among the level 3 Dharma spells. When casting the heaven-burning divine flame technique, if combined with spirit fire, its power would not be weaker than a level 4 Dharma spell. As long as it was a flame, no matter how special it was, the Beiyuan divine bird would be able to control it. Wang Daoyuan was excited. If the Beiyuan divine bird image could control the 3 types of spirit fire in his space, he would have another powerful trump card. It took him 2 days to successfully condense the Beiyuan's shadow. Next, he would try to see if the Beiyuan divine bird image could control spirit fire of different attributes. The dust returning flame and Gui water death flame were too powerful. It was safer to use the life spirit fire. He drew out a wisp of life spirit fire from the space of the spirit pearl and cast the heaven-burning divine flame technique to condense the Beiyuan divine bird image. The Beiyuan divine bird image flew past the life spirit fire. The originally soybean-sized flame instantly grew to more than 3 inches tall. The flame grew dozens of times bigger, and the consumption of spirit power was only 2 to 3 times faster. Wang Daoyuan was secretly delighted. He would have another powerful trump card in the future. He increased the consumption of spirit power and made the flame grow to several feet tall. The Beiyuan divine bird image drew the flame to itself. The fiery red Beiyuan divine bird image was wrapped in a layer of jade-green flames. The Beiyuan's shadow flapped its wings, and a green spiritual fire flew out and hit the stone wall of the cave. The flames hit the stone wall and some dirt fell off. After that, nothing happened. The life spirit fire only contained wood attribute spiritual energy and life force. Its offensive characteristic was that it could extract life force from living things and it burned them. This attack characteristic had no effect on the stone, and some of the dirt that fell was also eroded by the wood attribute's spiritual energy. Wang Daoyuan stopped sending out his wood attribute's spiritual power, and the green flames gradually extinguished. Then, he took out a wisp of returning dust flame from his space. This thing could burn anything to ashes. The Baifang's shadow was soon wrapped in a layer of earthy yellow flames. It controlled the flames to hit the stone wall. The earthy yellow flames burned on the stone wall, and the fire continued to expand. In the span of a dozen breaths, a hole with a diameter of over 20 feet and a depth of over a foot was burned into the stone wall. If he had this divine flames burning the heavens technique earlier, he wouldn't have had to dig a hole underground for 10 years. At most, he would have been able to finish it in 1 or 2 years. Wang Daoyuan stopped sending out earth attribute spiritual energy, but the earth attribute spiritual energy produced by the returning dust flame burning the stone was enough to support the burning. After he cut off the supply of earth attribute spiritual energy, the returning dust flame was still burning fiercely. He could only use the power of his divine sense to control the Baifang's shadow and withdraw the returning dust flame. In the span of a few breaths, the size of the flame had increased several times. If he took out the fire seed of the returning dust flame and absorbed these flames, its power would increase by a lot. However, Wang Daoyuan didn't dare to let the returning dust flame grow too quickly. Currently, in the space of the Soul Pearl, there wasn't a single blade of grass growing within a foot of the returning dust flame. If it continued to grow without limit, the entire space would be barren. These flames couldn't be wasted. Wang Daoyuan used the 5 spirits immortal transformation technique to extract the essence of the flames and strengthen the earth attribute spiritual energy seed in his body. It took him a day to completely refine all the essence, and the earth attribute spiritual energy seed also grew a little. Now, the 3 spiritual energy seeds in his body were all the size of a longan. The special spiritual energy produced was also very pure, but now that the 5 elemental seeds were incomplete, he couldn't use the 5 spirits immortal transformation technique's advantage in cultivation speed. Exchanging Lei Yan's insights for the divine sky-burning art with Zhao Liang was a great deal. He had already memorized the contents of the insights and even had his clone make a copy of it. He didn't lose anything by giving the original to Zhao Liang, and he could even gain a powerful trump card. Now that he had reached the entry level of the divine sky-burning art, his accumulation was still far from enough to break through to the Violet Palace realm. There was no need to rush to increase his cultivation, and the most important thing now was to improve his refining technique. His divine sense was strong enough to purify materials and inscribe array patterns. These 2 technical tasks were not difficult for him. As long as he practiced for a period of time, it would be easy for him to become a second-grade high-grade tool refiner. He had obtained 4 fangs and 36 claw tips from killing the demonic beasts. These were all good materials for refining second-grade high-grade artifacts. These fangs were about 2 feet long, and with the sword hilt, they were about 2 feet long. They could be used as flying swords. The claw tips were relatively small, and the largest was only about 5 inches long. It was a little difficult to refine them into flying swords, so he could only refine them into daggers or throwing knives. The strength of the claw tips couldn't be compared to the fangs, and their value was much lower. They were more suitable for practice. After half a year, Wang Daoyuan finally used up all the claws. Due to his level, he only managed to refine 20 daggers. Among them, there were 4 low-grade second-grade daggers, 11 mid-grade second-grade daggers, and 5 high-grade second-grade daggers. Since he could refine 5 high-grade second-grade daggers, his refining standard had also reached the second grade. Next was to refine the 4 fangs. The fangs of the golden-striped tiger, which was comparable to a pinnacle foundation establishment stage cultivator. Wang Daoyuan specifically asked the 12th uncle for some blood-patterned steel to refine the sword hilt. The blood-patterned steel was also a high-grade second-grade material. The blood-patterned steel had a natural blood-like pattern on it, which was how it got its name. Its strength was extremely high, and the natural blood-like pattern was easy for spiritual power to pass through. It was very suitable for refining offensive Dharma artifacts. The greatest value of the blood-patterned steel was its blood-like pattern. It wasn't suitable for smelting and could only be forged. When forging, he had to be careful not to damage the blood-like pattern too much. The fangs were made of bone, so they couldn't even be forged, let alone smelted. He cleaned up the impurities in the fangs and sharpened the edges on both sides of the fangs. He forged the blood-patterned steel so that its shape was just right for the fangs. After that, he added some melted second-grade metal materials to fill in the gaps and glued the blood-patterned steel and the fangs together. At this point, the forging process was completed, and the next step was to inscribe the pattern. This thing could be used against other Dharma artifacts, and the main thing was to inscribe some patterns to increase the Dharma artifact strength. In addition, he had to inscribe some sharpness, spirit-breaking, and armor-breaking patterns. When using the sword to attack, it would be easier to break the opponent's defensive spells and spirit armor. The two main materials couldn't be smelted, so forging the blood-patterned steel didn't take much effort. The main work was inscribing the pattern. After inscribing the pattern, the Dharma artifact was also completed. The value of the materials was high, and he was also very diligent. It took him more than 4 months to refine the 4 fangs. The 4 fangs didn't fail, but there were serious mistakes in the inscribing of the pattern on 2 of them. Although he tried his best to fix it, it still caused the grade to drop and become a middle-grade second-grade Dharma artifact. The other 2 fangs didn't have any major mistakes and were both refined into high-grade second-grade Dharma artifacts. The 4 fangs were used to refine 2 short swords, and the other 2 weren't completely failures. This level wasn't considered weak among high-grade second-grade Dharma artificers. Chapter 280. Wang Daoyuan named Fang's short sword the Tiger Fiend Sword, and the dagger the Tiger Claw Blade. Now that the magic tool had been refined, his refining level had reached high-grade Tier 2. It was time to repair the wave-chasing flying boat that he had bought decades ago. After the new flying boat was refined, the wave-chasing flying boat was handed over to Wang Daoyuan. He took out the wave-chasing flying boat and injected spirit power into it. The flying boat returned to its original size of 5 feet long and 1 foot wide. Wang Daoyuan took apart the entire outer shell of the flying boat. The deck and side of the boat were made of ordinary materials, and their strength was far worse than iron quinoa wood. He naturally would not keep these rubbish materials, and replaced them all with iron quinoa wood. The keel was still in good condition, and the material was also Tier 2 spirit wood. The size control formation on it could still be used, so there was no need to replace it for the time being. The ribs were damaged, so he replaced them all. The ribs were connected to the keel and supported the frame of the flying boat. The material requirements were higher, so they were all replaced with jade bone pine wood. After removing the outer hull, ribs, keel, cabin, and other things, the core of the flying boat that was inscribed with propulsion and floating formations was exposed. The refining level of this core component was far worse than Lei Yanjinren's. The refining level of the refiner was about the same as his. It was estimated that this guy's spiritual sense cultivation was not good enough, and his level of inscribing formation patterns and refining materials was worse than his. Unlike Lei Yanjinren's flying boat core, the core of the wave-chasing flying boat was refined with a mixture of Tier 2 metal materials. At that time, the old man who sold the flying boat did not ask for much. The core material of the flying boat was indeed worth 1 or 2,000 spirit stones. Apart from the inferior refining level, the components were not much different from the flying boat core refined by Lei Yanjinren. The damage to the core of the wave-chasing flying boat was not as serious as imagined. Only a few components were damaged, and the formation patterns inscribed on them were also affected. Although the 2 formations did not have much practical use, they still retained their basic functions, indicating that the formation patterns could still be used. Although the flying boat core was not much, it still had an advantage, which was easy to repair. Because the flying boat core was made of Tier 2 metal materials, it could be smelted and recast, and did not need to be completely replaced. Furthermore, there were a few damaged components, and the formation patterns had not completely lost their effectiveness. He didn't even need to recast it. All he needed to do was fill in the cracks and the damaged parts with other metal materials and repair the damaged formation patterns. Then, the entire core of the flying boat would be fine. The core of the flying boat was not seriously damaged. Wang Daoyuan only spent a few days to repair it. Next, he did not assemble the other parts of the flying boat. Instead, he directly copied the wave-chasing boat. Although he had carefully observed the core of the flying boat that Daoist Lei Yan had refined, it was still his first time refining it after all. It was better to have a real object as a reference. There was no need to worry about the materials needed to refine the core. Yun-Yi would stay at Jade Pine Mountain. If she lacked any materials, she would send a message to the 12th uncle and ask Yun-Yi to bring them over. The core material of the flying boat was star steel, a high-grade Tier 2 material. It was a metallic material, but the spiritual energy it contained was of no attribute. It was best to use non-elemental materials to refine large artifacts such as flying boats. That was because the flying boat was mainly powered by spirit stones, and spirit stones provided non-elemental spiritual energy. When materials of any other attribute absorbed non-elemental spiritual energy, there would be a process of spiritual energy attribute conversion. Meaningless processes were naturally removed as much as possible. The strength of star steel was not low, and it was also a metallic material. When it was damaged, it was easier to repair. Most importantly, the Wang family had a mine that produced star steel. Although the production of high-grade Tier 2 star steel was extremely low, it was still enough to refine the core of the flying boat. In order to save time, he even asked Zhao Liang to help out. Zhao Liang was still at the peak of qi refinement. It took time and effort to process Tier 2 materials. Wang Daoyuan asked him to help with the hull material. In other words, he had to cut iron quinoa wood into wooden boards and inscribe patterns to increase the strength. He still had to do the core parts, as well as the keel and ribs. He had to inscribe the two large formations, the floating array and the propulsion array, on more than 10 pieces of star steel. These pieces of star steel could not be too big because Tier 2 metals had a high density. The bigger the size, the heavier the weight. The floating array had a limited capacity. If the core of the flying boat took up too much of its weight, it would be able to carry less goods in the future. This was also a major flaw of the metallic core. With the spiritual wood core, there was no need to consider so much. The size could be larger. The core of the flying boat refined by Lei Yanjinren was very common for parts that were more than 10 feet long. As for the parts that Wang Daoyuan refined, they were at most 3 feet long. As a result, the difficulty of inscribing the formation patterns was much higher. In general, the spiritual wood core and the metallic core both had their advantages and disadvantages. The spiritual wood core was light and easy to inscribe the formation patterns, but it was more difficult to repair it after it was damaged. The metallic core was heavy and difficult to inscribe the formation patterns, but it was easy to repair it after it was damaged. Wang Daoyuan chose the metallic core not only because it was easy to repair, but also because the Wang family did not have suitable spiritual wood. The jade bone pine's spiritual energy permeability was too poor and was not suitable to be the core. The golden silk jade peach's spiritual energy permeability was extremely high, but the Wang family did not have any high-grade Tier 2 golden silk jade peach. Although there was one in the space of the spirit pearl, Wang Daoyuan did not dare to take it out easily. If he purchased suitable spiritual wood, he would have to use the same spiritual wood to repair the damaged core in the future. Furthermore, considering the mistakes during the refinement process and the wastage of materials, he would have to purchase a large amount of spiritual wood at once. The cost was too high. After considering everything, Wang Daoyuan chose the star steel to refine the core of the flying boat. Fortunately, Wang Daoyuan's formation skills were excellent and he spent close to a year to successfully refine the core of the flying boat. During this period, there were countless mistakes. Fortunately, the star steel could be smelted multiple times and did not consume much of the spiritual materials. Because it had been smelted too many times, the star steel that was no longer suitable for refining the core was still useful and could be used as a repair material. After the core of the flying boat was refined, the remaining work was not difficult. It was nothing more than using the jade bone pine to create a protective layer for the core of the flying boat and refining the ribs. The core of the jade bone pine was used to refine the dragon bones. There were still many of these left when he refined the outer shell of the flying boat. Although the newly refined flying boat was still 50 feet long, its width had increased to 20 feet to increase the transport capacity. A year and a half later, the two flying boats were completed at the same time. The name of the wave-chasing boat had already been replaced by the previous flying boat and was now changed to Linji. The brand new flying boat was named Jade Pine. The work for the three flying boats had already been arranged. The wave-chasing boat set off from Jade Spring Peak and headed south along Clear Glass River. After arriving at Clear Glass City, it turned east and followed the clear stream to the edge of Heaven/Mountain Range. There were many itinerant cultivators on this route and it was mainly used for passenger transport with freight transport as a supplement. The refinement standards of the Lin Ji were lower and the quality of the materials were not good. Furthermore, it had been repaired and there was no guarantee that there would be no problems. It was not suitable for long journeys. The route from Jade Pine Mountain to Jade Spring Peak would pass by Lin Ji Mountain and a few other family properties. It was mainly used for freight transport and only family cultivators were used for passenger transport. The jade pine was personally refined by Wang Daoyuan. Although the standards of the core of the flying boat were far from perfected being Lei Yen, it was much better than the core of the Lin Ji. Furthermore, all the materials were produced by the family and it was easy to repair if there were any problems. Therefore, the jade pine took on the most difficult task of transporting goods from Clear Glass City to Heyang County's Heian Lake Market. In order to ensure the safety of the flying boat, Wang Daoyuan even set up an offensive and defensive formation on the exterior of the flying boat. While he had to guard against external enemies, he had to guard against internal enemies as well. This was to prevent thieves from pretending to be passengers and sneaking onto the flying boat to seize the chance to steal it. Using his evil weapon refinement techniques, Wang Daoyuan set up many dermic weapons that could release grade 2 dermic spells in the core cabin of the flying boat. As soon as someone barged into the engine cabin, these grade 2 dermic spells would be triggered. The manager of the engine cabin could also control these dermic weapons to release dermic spells to attack the troublemakers on the flying boat. Chapter 281. After the three flying ships started working, they encountered many cultivators who wanted to rob the ships. After all, there were no Foundation establishment cultivators on board. Even Peak Chi refinement cultivators had a chance of successfully robbing the ships. Linji's route in the Wang family's territory didn't encounter any robberies. Jade Song and Wave Chaser encountered many robberies. Wave Chaser's main purpose was to transport passengers. Rogue cultivators were mostly fugitives, so they encountered robberies the most. No matter how bad a flying ship was, it was still worth 10,000 spirit stones and there were no Foundation establishment cultivators on board. It would be strange if fugitives weren't tempted. However, with Wang Daoyuan's backup plan, it was possible to kill late Foundation establishment cultivators. Chi refinement cultivators would definitely die if they dared to make a move. Jade Song's journey was the furthest and it passed through the border between two counties. This kind of border was most suitable for robberies. Because Jade Song was a cargo ship, it didn't carry rogue cultivators. Only cultivators from friendly families could take the flying ship. Therefore, Jade Song had never encountered any robberies. Instead, it encountered Foundation establishment cultivators blocking the way many times. Wang Daoyuan's offensive and defensive formations were all superior level 2 formations. They had the ability to kill late Foundation establishment cultivators. After 3 months of transporting goods, Jade Song was intercepted by a late Foundation establishment cultivator and 2 mid-Foundation establishment cultivators near Heaven's Gate. The steward of Jade Song used the formation to kill the 2 mid-Foundation establishment cultivators. The late Foundation establishment cultivator also escaped with heavy injuries. Since then, no one dared to rob the Wang family's flying ship. With the advantage of being at the source of Qingli River, the Wang family had a huge advantage in water transportation. Now that they had the flying ship, it could be said that the Wang family controlled the transportation industry in the north of Qingli County, monopolizing the industry to make money. Completely controlling the industry without any competitors was even more profitable. After half a year of operation, the flying ship's income surpassed the three industries of pills, talismans, and spirit chefs. It was comparable to the income of the spirit wine industry. Naturally, the flying ship was under the control of the transportation hall. In the past, the transportation hall didn't have much money and only supported the mining hall, spirit wood hall, and trade hall. Now that they had the flying ship, the transportation hall's profitability was no less than the other three halls. The Transportation Hall and Spirit Silkworm Hall were the two halls with the greatest prospects. In the future, transportation and silkworms would become the most important industries of the Wang family. This was just the beginning. In the future, the clan would expand its business scope. The flying boat was an important weapon for the clan to expand its living space and market. It would also promote the development of other industries. After Lin Ji and Yu Song were completed, Wang Daoyuan and Zhao Liang did not stay idle. They continued to refine flying boats. Due to the huge commotion in the central region of Qingli Prefecture, they needed to refine another flying boat to be used for transportation between Qingli City Square and the central region of Qingli Prefecture. This commotion was caused by the clans around 100 Spirit Mountain preparing to set up a market. The location of the market was at the foot of the western part of 100 Spirit Mountain. There were a few streams here that flowed into Qingli River. Water transportation was convenient, and it was backed by the rich and populous Bailing Mountain. The location was indeed excellent. There weren't any large-scale city squares in the central part of Qingli Prefecture. The few so-called small-scale city squares were just a few clans that established a grassroots organization. Once the Bailing Mountain Market was established, it would quickly become the trading hub of the entire Qingli region. If he could take the initiative here, the profits would be huge. The only drawback was that there were still a few dozen Yao beasts in 100 Spirit Mountain. If he could not get rid of the Yao beasts, the matter of setting up a market would be complete nonsense. There was also news from 100 Spirit Mountain. As long as Wang Jian was willing to wipe out the Yao beasts in 100 Spirit Mountain, the Wang clan would receive 1/10 of the shares of the Bailing Mountain Market. This was using great profits to lure the Wang clan and urge Wang Jian to act. However, the Wang clan was not in a hurry. With the Wang clan's current output, Qingli City Square, Green Willow Island, and Heiang Prefecture's Heian Lake Market, the three major markets could completely swallow it all. Without more output, there was no need to expand the market. The matter of the Bailing Mountain Market could wait until Fallen Dragon Ridge was completely taken down. Of course, the flying boat had to be prepared in advance. It was better to prepare and not use, than to use and not prepare. Preparing the flying boat in advance would prevent them from not being able to take it out when they needed it in the future. Wang Daoyuan and Zhao Liang cooperated and transferred the first-tier craftsmen taught by Zhao Liang from Jade Spring Peak to Jade Pine Mountain to help out. With the experience from last time, Wang Daoyuan's skill in crafting the core of the flying boat had improved. The core of the flying boat refined this time was a bit stronger than the jade pine. The stronger the core, the bigger the outer shell, and the more cargo it could transport, otherwise it would be a waste of such a good core. The new flying boat was named Jade Spring. In order to refine the Jade Spring, he had cut down a second-tier high-grade jade bone pine and refined a 7-zhang long keel. The entire flying boat was close to 8 zhang long and 25 zhang wide. The Jade Spring was bigger and had more space inside. Wang Daoyuan had also left some backup plans. With the experience from last time, the speed of the refining this time was much faster. In just 8 months, the refining was completed. After refining the Jade Spring, Wang Daoyuan spent nearly a year refining a few keels and a complete set of core components of the flying boat. This was to prepare for going out to gain experience. Now that he was at the 7th level of foundation establishment, it was time for him to prepare for opening the Purple Palace. Zhao Liang was now a second-tier high-grade craftsman. He could repair and replace the components of the flying boat that did not involve array formations. But apart from Wang Daoyuan, there were no other second-tier high-grade array masters in the clan. Wang Shoujia had been nurtured by Wang Daoyuan for several years, but he was only a first-tier mid-grade array master. Although his talent was very good, he did not even have the ability to repair the flying boat's array formations. When he went out to gain experience, if there was a problem with the keels or the flying boat's core, no one would be able to repair it. Naturally, he had to make some preparations in advance. After making these preparations, Wang Daoyuan greeted his 12th uncle and left the clan again. He went to the north of the mountain to prepare for opening the Purple Palace. There were not many channels to obtain auxiliary spiritual items for opening the Purple Palace, but he knew of two. The first was that the top forces would auction the yin-yang purple jade and the purple cloud would core every 200 years. There was a hard condition to participate in this auction, and that was to have at least one golden core cultivator in one's faction. The Wang clan did not have any golden core cultivators, so they did not even have the qualifications to bid. The second was to obtain the yin-yang purple jade from Blood Shadow. His clone, Wu Yi, was originally an internal member of the Blood Shadow Mountain's northern branch. As an internal member of Blood Shadow, he was naturally qualified to use spirit stones to buy the yin-yang purple jade. Wang Daoyuan had long wanted to play this hand, but he did not have the means to recover his soul before, so he did not dare to casually send his clone out. Now that he had the inky jade lotus seed, even if his clone was killed and lost a part of his soul, he could quickly recover. After leaving Jade Pine Mountain, he did not fly on his sword. Instead, he walked to the north. After crossing Huiyan Mountain, he headed west and headed to Guiyan Market. It had been more than 20 years since he last came to Guiyan Market. In the past 20 years, the Underworld sect had wanted to make a move on the Guiyuan sword sect. Although they did not fight in the end, it still affected the situation in the north of the mountain. The situation in the north of the mountain was unknown. Chapter 282. Wang Daoyuan was in the limelight during the duel between the two sections. Too many people recognized him, so he didn't dare to show his true face. He used to have the appearance of a youth, but he used a disguise technique to change his appearance into a weather-beaten middle-aged man. He used the spirit concealment technique to suppress his cultivation to the 4th level of foundation establishment before entering the market. After a few steps, he saw a middle-aged qi condensation cultivator come to talk to him. This person was an acquaintance. It was the broker Fu Cheng that he met when he first came to Guiyan Market. After 20 years, Fu Cheng had aged a lot, but his cultivation had increased a little. He was now at the 5th level of qi condensation. In this line of work, there was basically no time to cultivate. Only cultivators who didn't have any hope in their path of cultivation would choose this line of work. It wasn't easy for this guy to improve his cultivation. Fu Qing cupped his hands towards Wang Daoyuan and bowed. Is this the first time Senior has come to Guiyan Market? I've lived here since I was young, so I know Guiyan Market very well. No matter what Senior wants to buy, I can help Senior find a suitable shop. Wang Daoyuan laughed with a voice full of vicissitudes. I've traveled here 50 years ago. After that, I went to other places to look for opportunities. A few years ago, I heard that the Underworld sect wanted to make a move against Shanbei. I wonder if the situation here has changed. Fu Qing had a troubled look on his face as he said, this junior doesn't dare to say it in public. Wang Daoyuan laughed, take me to an inn run by a half-demon force. The half-demon force that runs the inn must be neutral. I don't want to get involved in the fight between big forces. Then, he handed a spirit stone to Fu Cheng. Fu Cheng took the spirit stone and promised with a smile, don't worry, Senior will be satisfied. Then, he brought Wang Daoyuan to an inn. The signboard in front of the inn had the words, Taurus Inn written on it. Fu Cheng laughed, Senior, this Taurus Inn is the business of the Taurus tribe. The Taurus tribe is very powerful. They have 2 golden core cultivators and never get involved in the disputes of other forces. Although the Taurus tribe's elders don't have good tempers, as long as you don't provoke them, they are still very kind. Wang Daoyuan brought Fu Cheng into the inn and booked a superior room. He scanned the entire room with his divine sense, but he didn't find anything that was monitoring him. Then, he took out a soundproof array disc and placed some spirit stones on it. The soundproof array was activated and the entire room was shrouded in it. Wang Daoyuan took out 10 spirit stones and asked, "Can you tell me now?" Fu Qing hurriedly took the spirit stones and answered, "The underworld sect and the demon clan have reconciled." Not many major events have happened in the past 50 years. About 50 years ago, the Beiyuan sword sect suddenly became very high profile and began to expand their businesses. They did all kinds of business and even recruited a large number of rogue cultivators. This was especially true for cultivators who were proficient in alchemy, weapons, and talisman arrays. The Beiyuan sword sect did not hesitate to use force to recruit them. However, the Beiyuan sword sect had always hidden themselves very well, and their reputation among the rogue cultivators in this area was extremely good. About 20 years ago, there was a senior called Huang Wanli who was proficient in alchemy and talisman arrays. He opened an elixir store in the market. The Beiyuan sword sect forced him to join several times. Senior Huang did not dare to forcefully refuse and agreed to help the Beiyuan sword sect refine pills and make talismans. However, the Beiyuan sword sect did not give up. When Senior Huang and another senior went out to look for spirit herbs, the Beiyuan sword sect sent experts to chase after them, wanting to capture Senior Huang and bring him into the sect. This Senior Huang was also very capable. Faced with the pursuit of a 6th-stage foundation establishment cultivator from the Beiyuan sword sect, he escaped thousands of miles away with his 3rd-stage foundation establishment cultivation. He even complained about the Beiyuan sword sect's crimes along the way. In the end, Senior Huang's cultivation was too low. In the end, he could only lure the experts of the Beiyuan sword sect to a group of demon beasts. After a bloody battle, there was no more news of Senior Huang and the experts of the Beiyuan sword sect. The news of the Beiyuan sword sect kidnapping cultivators who were proficient in alchemy, weapons, and talisman arrays also spread in this area. Other forces also took advantage of the situation and exposed some of the shameful things of the Beiyuan sword sect. Since then, the reputation of the Beiyuan sword sect was completely ruined. Business was not good and no one was willing to join the Beiyuan sword sect. More than 10 years ago, the Netherworld sect said that the Beiyuan sword sect was a remnant of the Zhao royal family and wanted to conquer them. However, the demons and half-demons did not agree and the cultivators of the Netherworld sect crossed the Huiyan mountain. The Netherworld sect had no choice but to send a small number of Foundation Establishment and Zifu realm cultivators to the north of the mountain. On one hand, they discussed with the demons and half-demons, and on the other, they spied on the Beiyuan sword sect. The Foundation Establishment cultivators of both sides often fought outside the Guiyan market and there were casualties on both sides. Since then, the Netherworld sect also strengthened their forces in the Guiyan market. In the past, the Netherworld sect only stationed one Zifu realm cultivator in the Guiyan market. Now, there were 60 to 70 Foundation Establishment cultivators. The Beiyuan sword sect's reputation was ruined and they were suppressed by the Netherworld sect. They were no longer as arrogant as before. Now, their business was poor and their disciples rarely appeared. A few years ago, the Netherworld sect's base in the Guiyan market was often visited by Foundation Establishment cultivators dressed as loose cultivators. These Foundation Establishment cultivators dressed as rogue cultivators left Wild Goose Market and headed north. In a few days, they would return. Some of them even had injuries all over their bodies. As for what they were going to do, I don't know. This situation continued on and off for 4 or 5 years, and then it was left unsettled. In recent years, the situation has been very stable and the various factions have not made any moves. The structure of the Guiyan market has not changed much and the division of power is the same as before. The south of the market is the territory of the Netherworld sect. The north is the territory of the demons. The east is mixed with many half-demon tribes. The west is the territory of the north of the mountain. The shops of the Beiyuan sword sect and other small sects and cultivation clans are mostly in the west. There are loose cultivators' shops everywhere. If Senior wants to open a shop, it's best to open one in the central and eastern regions. The central region is mixed with various factions and no one dares to cause trouble. The half-demon factions in the east have a neutral attitude and are not in any alliance. As long as you don't deliberately cause trouble, no one will care if you do business. Wang Daoyuan asked, "How do you know I want to do business here?" Fu Qing smiled and said, "I rely on my eyesight to make a living. If Senior is only staying here temporarily, why would you ask about the situation? Senior took 10 spirit stones and asked me about these things that are not considered secrets. The biggest possibility is that you are here to do business." Wang Daoyuan smiled and said, "I want to open a shop for refining weapons. Help me find a suitable shop and you will be rewarded." Fu Qing bowed and said, "Senior, don't worry. I will help you find a suitable shop. I will definitely give you a reply within 3 days. Junior's name is Fu Qing. If Senior is looking for me, you can just tell the shopkeeper." With that, he turned and left the room. Wang Daoyuan put away the soundproof formation and thought to himself. According to Fu Qing, a few years ago, the Netherworld sect sent out a foundation establishment cultivator to explore the north of Wild Goose Market. A few days later, he returned with injuries. It was very likely that he went to the Mirror Lake Oasis to find a place with purine chi. If a cultivator returned with injuries, it was very likely that he fought with Chen Ji. It seemed that his plan to kill with a borrowed knife had worked. The fact that the Netherworld sect dared to send out more foundation establishment cultivators after the injured one meant that the enemy's cultivation hadn't reached the Violet Palace realm. Chen Ji was still a foundation establishment cultivator, which was good news for Wang Daoyuan. Establishing a Violet Palace was a qualitative change. No matter how strong a peak foundation establishment cultivator was, it would be difficult for them to defeat an early-stage Violet Palace realm cultivator. If a foundation establishment cultivator could withstand a few moves from a Violet Palace realm cultivator, they could be said to be invincible in the same realm. Shi Zhenbang of the Green Willow province had withstood a move from Zhou Qi and escaped unscathed, which attracted countless wandering cultivators. Wang Daoyuan didn't dare to fight with a Violet Palace realm cultivator, but Chen Ji hadn't established a Violet Palace yet. As long as he hadn't established a Violet Palace realm, no matter how strong he was still a foundation establishment cultivator. Chapter 283. Wang Daoyuan was taking the Gui water death flame, causing the Yin energy of the Mingshui River and the mysterious Yin spring to disappear. Many evil practitioners had left the Dark Moon Market, which affected the recruitment speed of the 9th Prince's branch. In order to divert the attention of the Wanling sect and the Wanling sect, the Underworld sect used the Guiyuan sword sect as a shield, making it difficult for the Guiyuan sword sect to expand. Among the forces under the Zhao clan, only the Green Willow continent was not affected. The Green Willow continent was the 9th Prince's subordinate, and the 9th Prince always planned before acting. The 3 major sects were watching the Guiyuan sword sect, so the 6th Prince would not dare to act. Without this idiot, Shanbei could maintain a stable situation for a long time. Moreover, the 3 major sects had a common enemy, so they would not easily stir up trouble. The Zhao clan could maintain a peaceful situation for a long time. He really didn't expect that his casual move would cause such a huge impact. With the situation stable, the Wang clan could develop in peace. Currently, the Wang clan was in a critical period of development. If there were no accidents, they could manage the Jade Pine Mountain for a few years, then continue to attack the Fallen Dragon Ridge and take down 1 or 2 more mountains. Wang Jian would wipe out the monsters in the 100 Spirit Mountain, and the Wang clan would become a shareholder of the 100 Spirit Mountain market. After that, the Wang clan's influence would expand beyond the northern part of the Qingli prefecture, and they would become a true overlord clan. If they could not take this step, the Wang clan would be trapped in the northern part of the Qingli prefecture, and could only be an ordinary Z Mansion clan. The current situation was very beneficial to the Wang clan's overall interests. However, it had advantages and disadvantages for Wang Daoyuan. The advantage was that he did not have to worry about being affected by the infighting of other forces, so he could carry out his plan in peace. The disadvantage was that the situation was too stable, so it was not easy to fish in troubled waters. He had to be careful to avoid being the first to do something. After staying at the Taurus Inn for 2 days, Fu Qing came to find him. After the two met, Fu Qing bowed and said, "Senior, I have followed your instructions and found a good place to open a shop for you." Wang Daoyuan smiled and said, "You're pretty smart. Is this shop clean from top to bottom? Don't wait for me to take over, and there will be trouble." Fu Qing quickly replied, "Senior, don't worry. The owner of the shop is a neutral tribe, and they are renting it to an independent cultivator senior. The senior is only staying here temporarily. Now the lease is coming to an end, he wants to train elsewhere and has no intention of renewing the lease. Therefore, the shop owner is looking for another place. However, the half-demon tribe has no intention of selling their shops and can only rent them. What do you think, senior?" Wang Daoyuan said without hesitation, "As long as there's no *t, we can accept both renting and buying." However, what was the situation with the half-demon tribe? Did they have a bunch of enemies? I have to make to be a shield clan sect. Fu Qing said, the tribe. This tribe was neither strong nor weak. They didn't have any Jindan cultivators, but they did have a few peak-stage Sifu disciples. The White Fox tribe claimed that their ancestor was a 5-tailed spirit fox and possessed the bloodline of a 9-tailed celestial fox. Looking at the cultivation talent of the people of the White Fox tribe, there was not even a single golden core cultivator. This statement was most likely an exaggeration. The White Fox tribe had always been law-abiding and did not like to fight. Moreover, they were very willing to marry into the human race. Many Foundation establishment loose cultivators had married into their families. If senior is interested, you can give it a try. When the White Fox tribe recruited human cultivators, they paid the most attention not to their looks and talent, but to their knowledge of the various arts of immortal cultivation. Since senior wants to open a weapon refinement shop, you must be proficient in the art of weapon refinement. You should be chosen by the White Fox tribe. Hearing this, Wang Daoyuan felt that it was inappropriate. He was here to cause trouble, not to marry into the family. He asked, "My heart is on the path of Tao. Women will only affect my cultivation speed. If the people of the White Fox tribe will harass you, then you should go to another shop." When Fu Qing heard that, he said with a smile, "Senior, don't worry. The White Fox tribe has always been well-behaved. If you have no intention of marrying into their family, they will not pester you." Wang Daoyuan pondered for a moment and said, "Then let's go take a look first." The shop was located in the middle of the market, close to the east, which was the half-demon's territory. The surrounding shops were all owned by the various half-demon tribes. As such, business was very good. Half-demons inherited the characteristics of humans and demons. They had the strong physique and talent of demons, as well as the intelligence and strong souls of humans. However, compared to humans and demons, half-demons were still lacking in many aspects. For example, half-demons were not suitable to learn the various arts of immortal cultivation. Hence, they did not have much achievements in alchemy, smithing, and talisman arrays. The surrounding shops were all half-demon shops and were not competitive. Naturally, his business was good. Fu Qing brought Wang Daoyuan to the shop and saw that the signboard had been removed. It seemed that the previous tenant had ended the lease. Wang Daoyuan walked into the shop and saw a male and female Foundation establishment cultivator. The male was a young man at the 6th level of Foundation establishment. He had sword-like eyebrows and phoenix eyes and a handsome face. Although he was dressed as an itinerant cultivator, his bearing was extraordinary. His every move was perfect and gave off a natural feeling. There was nothing unnatural about it. It was obvious that he had undergone strict and brilliant etiquette training. He had seen many elite disciples of the three major sects, but none of them had undergone such strict etiquette training. He had also seen people from the Zhao royal family and they were not so particular about etiquette. Such people were definitely not itinerant cultivators. Beside him stood a woman in a long white dress. She was at the third level of foundation establishment. The woman's face was like a peach blossom. Even without makeup, she was bright and moving. However, her hair was white and her ears were not like a human's. They were shaped like a dog. This woman was clearly a half-demon and should be from the White Fox tribe. Wang Daoyuan cupped his hands at the two of them. I'm Wu Chuan. Greetings to Dao Yu. I'm interested in renting this shop. I wonder which one of the Dao Yu will name the price. The man smiled. I'm only a tenant of this shop and not the owner. I'm only waiting for Dao Yu to hand over some things. As for the price, it's naturally up to you to negotiate with Miss Bai. The half-demon woman winked at the man and said, if you want, not to mention this small shop, even the entire tribe will be yours. The man looked at Wang Daoyuan, and a purple light flashed in his eyes. He said, the family rules are very strict. I don't dare to stay outside for long. I hope Miss Bai can forgive me. However, this Dao Yu has such a cultivation at such a young age. His talent is not below mine, and his luck is far better than mine. If the White Fox tribe can let this person marry into our family, it will be easy to revitalize the tribe. I'm Zhou Xian. Can we be friends? Wang Daoyuan was very alert and noticed the purple light flashing in his eyes. This was a special spell that used the eyes. It was called an eye technique and could see through a person's disguise. There were many such spells, but this person mentioned luck. Wang Daoyuan could obtain the space in the spiritual pearl, so his luck was naturally not bad. This person could see a person's luck. This was a chi viewing technique. According to the 5 Elements Spiritual Master's book, Beiyuan Records, there was a large sect in the westernmost part of Beiyuan Shoshin. It was called the Archaic Mysteries sect. It was good at prying into the secrets of heaven and chi viewing techniques. The Archaic Mysteries sect still existed and was one of the top powers in Beiyuan Shoshin. It was on par with the Divine Weapon Pavilion. Even Luo Hongming could not compare to this person's behavior and temperament. It could be seen that his background was far better than the underworld sect. He also knew the chi viewing technique. It was very likely that he was from the Archaic Mysteries sect. Wang Daoyuan cupped his hands and said, Greetings, Xian Daoyu. I'm just a rogue cultivator. How would I dare to associate with you? The founder of the Archaic Mysteries sect was surnamed Xian. The sect master had always been from the Xian family. The core inheritance of the Archaic Mysteries sect was the Xian family's secret technique. The chi viewing technique was created by the Xian family. Wang Daoyuan called him Xian Daoyu to test him. Zhou Xian's body flashed with a strange wave of spiritual power. Wang Daoyuan's hand also flashed with earth elemental spiritual power. He was ready to use the earth divine thunder. Zhou Xian's spiritual power flashed, and Wang Daoyuan immediately stopped using the earth divine thunder. The two of them tested each other's strength. The half-demon woman did not notice anything unusual. Chapter 284. Zhou Xian laughed. Wu Daoyu must be joking. My surname is Zhou. Daoyu is really capable. I am not your match. Wang Daoyuan replied, fellow Daoist Zhou is making fun of me. I've wasted nearly 200 years, and I'm only at the 4th level of foundation establishment. I am not young and my cultivation is not worth mentioning. Although the half-demon woman and Fu Qing could tell that there was a hidden meaning in their words, their strength and knowledge were limited. They did not understand what the two were talking about and did not realize that they were testing each other. Zhou Xian cupped his hands and said, I wanted to hand over some things in the shop to Wu Daoyu, but there is no need for that now. Wu Daoyu and I are like-minded, so I will give Daoyu some of my worldly possessions. It is a pity that Daoyu is too scheming. Wang Daoyuan returned the gesture and said, then I have to thank Daoyu for your gift. Daoyu and I hit it off. What a pity. Why does a good person like you have such a mouth? Hearing this, Zhou Xian laughed. I have always been talkative and said something I should not have said. Daoyu wouldn't want me to stay, would you? Wang Daoyuan laughed. I do not have the ability to keep Daoyu here. Furthermore, I am not a fool. I will not risk my life for such a small matter. Previously, the two of them had tested each other and neither of them was confident of winning. Zhou Xian only said a few words and did not mean any harm. Wang Daoyuan would not kill anyone for such a small matter. Furthermore, this was someone from the Archaic Mysteries sect. Even if he killed Zhou Xian, he would not be able to hide it from the fortune-tellers of the Archaic Mysteries sect. If he angered the Archaic Mysteries sect, the Wang family's wealth would be gone with a breath. Zhou Xian bid farewell and left. He casually gave Fu Qing more than 20 spiritual stones and said, help me contact a channel that provides spiritual charcoal and level 2 smithing materials. You will be rewarded. Fu Qing took the spirit stones and ran away. Wang Daoyuan cupped his hands towards the half-demoness and said, Daoyu Bai, I would like to rent this shop. How much is the rent? The half-demon woman smiled and said, this shop can be rented or given away for free. Which one would Wu Daoyu like? Wang Daoyuan naturally knew what she meant. As long as he agreed to marry into the White Fox tribe, the shop would be given to him for free. An ordinary smithing shop would at most cost 10,000 spirit stones, but he could easily sell a second-tier high-grade spirit artifact for more than that. With the current status of the Wang clan, as well as his position in the clan, as long as he said the word, all the daughters of the clan heads would rush to his door. He didn't even want to marry a human woman, let alone a half-demon. Not to mention a half-demon with poor cultivation talent. Wang Daoyuan replied, I appreciate Daoyu's good intentions, but I still choose to rent a shop. The half-demon woman smiled and said, generally speaking, a shop like this would cost 200 to 300 spirit stones a year. As long as Wu Daoyu can agree to one of my conditions, the rent will be waived. Wang Daoyuan hurriedly rejected, don't. I can waive the conditions and double the rent will do. If it's okay, I'll rent it. If not, I'll change to another shop. The half-demon woman said coquettishly, Daoyu is so heartless. Are the women of my White Fox tribe really so unbearable? Wang Daoyuan couldn't be bothered with her and turned to leave. The half-demon woman immediately urged him to stay. Wu Daoyu, listen to my conditions first. My condition isn't for Daoyu to marry into the clan. I just want Daoyu to help me refine dermic weapons. Wang Daoyuan smiled and said, if that's the case, then there's no problem. I'm opening a refining shop and helping people refine dermic weapons is my business. There's no need to talk about conditions. Seeing him agree so readily, the half-demon woman smiled and said, thank you for your generosity, Daoyu. My White Fox tribe will also pay Daoyu spirit stones according to the market price. However, I have a presumptuous request, which is that the matter of refining dermic weapons for my White Fox tribe must not be leaked. Wang Daoyuan nodded and said, it's common to keep secrets for customers. That's not a problem. The half-demon woman was satisfied and said, since that's the case, I'll rent this shop to Daoyu. The rent will be waived and Daoyu can rent it for as long as you want. With that, the half-demon woman left the shop. Wang Daoyuan was very satisfied with the shop. The door faced east and faced a bustling street. There was nothing special about the shop and the backyard was not very spacious. There was only a simple residence and a small refining workshop. His avatar, Bai Sheng, used the dead wood in the space to make a signboard. Wang Daoyuan wrote the words, Wu's Refining Workshop, on the signboard. He hung the signboard on the main door and opened the shop. There were no workers in the shop. He needed to refine dermic weapons and had no time to entertain customers. He simply placed a "Customers, please enter" sign on the counter and entered the refining workshop to see what good things the archaic mysteries sect disciples had left for him. The refining workshop was a square stone house that was 4 to 5 feet long. In the middle of the house was a stone platform with anvils and hammers placed on it. This was where the forging process was done. Beside the south wall was a fixed refining furnace that could be used to refine materials. Beside the west wall were some special dermic weapons, including saws for processing dermic wood, chisel for inscribing dermic patterns and other tools. In addition, there were a few pieces of second-tier materials. The small door of the workshop was opened on the east wall and there was a pile of dermic charcoal beside the door. Beside the north wall was a pool used to quench dermic weapons. Although the items were not very precious, it would take a lot of time and spirit stones to buy them again. He came here to open a refining workshop to deceive others. It was good to save some time. After opening for half a month, only a few customers came. He bought a few pieces of second-tier materials and sold a second-tier medium-long sword. It was time to start his plan to get the Yang purple jade from Blood Shadow. Wang Daoyuan left Guiyan Market and entered Guiyan Mountain. He found an underground cave with the spirit-seeking compass and released his avatar, Wu Yi. Wu Yi had stayed in the space for so many years and his cultivation had reached the 8th level Foundation Establishment realm. He could try to enter Blood Shadow. He still had to make preparations. He took back the divided soul in his body and put it back in. After doing this, Wang Daoyuan began to tamper with Wu Yi's memories. In order to prevent experts from repairing the tampered memories, Wang Daoyuan first erased all of Wu Yi's memories after he was captured and then implanted fake memories. After the memories were tampered with, even if someone searched his soul, they would not expose any useful information about Wang Daoyuan. In the tampered memories, Wu Yi failed to assassinate Wang Daoyuan and was chased by Wang Daoyuan and a few spirit beasts. He even lost his inky gold sword. Wang Daoyuan had used the inky gold sword in front of others before. Blood Shadow's intelligence was very good. If they knew that he was in possession of the sword, Wu Yi would be exposed. In the tampered memories, Wu Yi was chased by Wang Daoyuan's spirit beasts. He fled all the way to the southeast and went thousands of miles deep into the sky/mountain range. He relied on his ability to hide his body to avoid being chased. In the end, he found an ancient cultivator's cave and hid in it to cultivate for many years. He only dared to come out when his cultivation reached the 8th level Foundation Establishment realm. The cave in his memories was also fabricated. It was only about 500 miles away from the sky/mountain range's main mountain range, so Blood Shadow's people did not dare to check it out. The evil techniques used to erase and tamper memories came from the beast skin book left behind by the 10,000 Corpse spiritual master. Originally, Wang Daoyuan disdained to learn these evil techniques. However, in order to get the Yang purple jade, he did not mind learning a few evil techniques. There was no good or evil technique. It depended on who it was used on. After the preparations were done, it was time to let Wu Yi go back and enter Blood Shadow. Chapter 285. Wang Daoyuan gave his doppelganger Wu Yi a low-grade second-rank metal-attributed flying sword. This magic tool was made when he was practicing the art of refining. There was also a storage bag, which contained a few thousand spirit stones, more than a dozen second-rank pills, and several second-rank talismans. In Wu Yi's memory, the flying sword and storage bag were obtained by killing a rogue cultivator after he left the ancient cultivator's cave. He gave Wu Yi a few Earth Escape talismans. After erasing all memories of himself, he let Wu Yi use Earth Escape talismans to head to the south of the mountain. The two of them were in the east of Guiyan Valley. There were almost no second-rank demonic beasts, so Earth Escape was not dangerous. After Wu Yi's doppelganger left, Wang Daoyuan also immediately used Earth Escape talisman to head to Guiyan Market Square. This time, it took him 4 to 5 days to deal with his doppelganger. It was common for rogue cultivators to close their shops and go out to do business. He was not afraid that people would be suspicious. With Wang Daoyuan's current divine sense cultivation, he could perceive his doppelganger within 100 miles. This meant that he could directly perceive what his doppelganger saw and heard. In addition, he could also directly say whatever he wanted to say from Wu Yi's mouth. Guiyan Market Square was only about 30 miles from the south to the north. The widest from east to west was only about 20 miles. Within 100 miles of perception, as long as Wu Yi did not leave Guiyan Market Square, he could perceive him. 3 days later, Wu Yi's doppelganger entered his perception range. Wu Yi followed his memory and entered Guiyan Market Square. The Blood Shadow North Mountain Branch's encampment was in the central area of Guiyan Market Square. Wu Yi's doppelganger was dressed like a rogue cultivator. He wore a black robe and a bamboo hat. He walked to the entrance of a restaurant in the central area. This restaurant's entrance faced the south. A red plaque with golden edges was hung on the lintel. 3 golden words were written on it: Immortal Welcome Restaurant. This Immortal Welcome Restaurant was the encampment of the Blood Shadow North Mountain Branch. Wu Yi entered the Immortal Welcome Restaurant. Immediately, a greeter came forward and asked, "Senior, are you here for a meal or a room?" Wu Yi said coldly, "A single courtyard." The layout of the Immortal Welcome Restaurant was similar to Guiyan Inn. The rooms were divided into 3 types: a common room, a private room, and a courtyard. The greeter brought Wu Yi to the counter. The shopkeeper handed him a token and said, "The easternmost courtyard in the backyard." The usher smiled and said, "Senior, please follow me." Wu Yi did not take the token, nor did he move. He sneered and said, "Give me the westernmost courtyard. The western part is of the metal element, and the murderous aura is the strongest." The shopkeeper didn't even raise his eyes. He looked at the account book and said, "Not everyone can live in the westernmost courtyard. If you want to live there, it depends on how capable Dao Yu is." Wu Yi smiled and said, "I have always been very confident in my own abilities." The shopkeeper shouted, "Men!" A 4th-level foundation establishment black-clothed young man walked over. The shopkeeper continued, "Take him to the westernmost courtyard. Don't care if he's dead or alive." The black-clothed youth didn't answer. He turned around and walked towards the backyard. Wu Yi followed behind him. Soon, the 2 of them arrived at the entrance of a small courtyard that occupied half an acre of land. There was nothing special about this small courtyard, except that it was covered by a layer of light. The black-clothed youth said, "The formation of this small courtyard doesn't have a control token. If you have the ability to enter, you can stay here." Wu Yi walked straight forward and passed through the light barrier. Then, his path became complicated. After a few steps, he had to turn a corner. Sometimes, he had to take a few steps back. The distance from the defensive light barrier to the entrance of the small courtyard was only a few feet, but he had to walk hundreds of steps. He walked to the entrance and gently pushed the door open. Then, he walked into the small courtyard. Seeing him enter, the black-clothed youth turned around and left the backyard. After Wu Yi entered the small courtyard, he walked straight to the main building. There were no formations or restrictions along the way. When he arrived at the main building, he pushed the door open and entered. The main building was divided into 3 rooms. The central room was in the middle. There was a portrait hanging on the back wall of the central room. The person in the portrait was wearing a blood-red robe. He held a black sword in his right hand and a head in his left hand. He was walking forward. The head looked very strange. Its facial features looked a little like a human's, but it had scales and 4 ox-like horns. However, the portrait depicted the person's back. The face couldn't be seen at all. It was impossible to tell whether the person in the portrait was a man or a woman. When Wu Yi became an internal member of the Blood Shadow North Mountain Branch, he was told that this was the portrait of ancestor Shui Yi. Legend had it that ancestor Shui Yi displayed his might when resisting the invasion of the foreign species. He killed the foreign species commander and became famous. After repelling the invaders, he established a sect and recruited disciples. Later on, for some unknown reason, Ancestor Shui disappeared. His disciples fought fiercely for power and profit. After several years of fighting, only 2 disciples were left. Their cultivations weren't very good. Most of the sect's experts were dead. They didn't dare to stay in the mountain gate. The 2 of them took the sect's inheritance and treasures and left the mountain gate. Later, the 2 disciples of Ancestor Shui founded Blood Shadow together. Ancestor Shui was honored as the founder of Blood Shadow sect. Wu Yi walked to the offering table and took out 3 incense sticks. He lit them and inserted them into the incense burner in front of the portrait. Then, he walked to the futon beside the offering table and knelt down. He kowtowed 3 times and kowtowed 9 times to the portrait. Then, a tile under the offering table moved to the side, revealing a half-foot wide pit. At the bottom of the pit was a dent. The pattern on it was exactly the same as the front of Wu Yi's Blood Shadow token. He took out the Blood Shadow token and placed it on the dent. Then, he cut his finger and squeezed out a drop of blood onto the token. The token of an internal member of Blood Shadow was different from that of an external member. Anyone who picked it up could become a member of Blood Shadow. An internal member's token was 1 token per person. Once the person died, the token would become invalid. He dripped his blood on the token to prove that it was his. When his blood fell on the token, it emitted a light. After 3 breaths, the light of the token disappeared. A cracking sound came from the eastern house. Wu Yi immediately put away the token and moved the tile back to cover the small pit. He walked towards the eastern house and saw a 5-foot square hole in the ground of the eastern house. There was a staircase in the hole that extended downwards. He followed the staircase down to the bottom of the hole. After half a cup of tea's time, he reached the bottom of the hole. As soon as he walked down the stairs, 3 swords came out from different directions and were placed on his neck. It just so happened that his neck was completely surrounded. There was no place to hide. 4 people walked out from the darkness. 3 of them were holding swords. All of them were at Foundation Establishment Level 3. The empty-handed one was at Foundation Establishment Level 6. The empty-handed cultivator asked, "What's your name?" Wu Yi took out the token and showed it to him. The empty-handed cultivator was surprised. "Wu Yi, you haven't come back for more than 20 years. But your soul lamp hasn't been extinguished. The Hall Master thought you had betrayed us. If you didn't come back after 25 years, the Hall Master would have reported to the headquarters and sent Blood Wolf to kill you. Where have you been all these years? Why haven't you come back?" Wu Yi coldly snorted. He released the spirit energy of Foundation Establishment Level 8 and said, "Is this something you should ask?" The 3 sword-wielding cultivators were shocked. They immediately withdrew their swords. The empty-handed cultivator was also a bit scared. In Blood Shadow, strength determines status. Wu Yi was at Foundation Establishment Level 8. His status was naturally above the 4 of them. They didn't dare to offend him. Wu Yi said to the empty-handed cultivator, "Take me to see the Hall Master." The empty-handed cultivator didn't say anything and led the way in front. This underground cave was very big. The empty-handed cultivator led him for 15 minutes before they arrived at a palace-like building. The empty-handed cultivator shouted, reporting to the Hall Master, "Sir Wu Yi has returned." A female voice came from inside the palace. "Wu Yi, come in." Wu Yi clasped his fist. "Yes, Hall Master." Saying so, he walked forward. The empty-handed cultivator left and continued to guard the door. Chapter 286. When Wu Yi entered the palace, he saw a red-clothed woman sitting on the main seat, and a black-clothed man sitting below her. The red-clothed woman wore a scarlet fox mask, and her figure was extremely voluptuous. Her clothes were also made of extraordinary cloth. The cloth used for a normal robe was enough to make more than 10 sets of clothes for her. Wu Yi was instinctively afraid of this red-clothed woman, and didn't dare to have any other thoughts. Wang Daoyuan, who was using his panoramic perception, felt his blood boil. He was worried that his emotions would disturb Wu Yi, so he immediately circulated his water spirit energy to calm himself down. On the other side, Wu Yi wasn't affected at all. He bowed. Wu Yi greets Hall Master. After speaking, he cupped his hands towards the black-clothed man. Greetings, Lord Yulang. This red-clothed woman was called Scarlet Fox, and she was the person in charge of the Blood Shadow Mountain's northern branch. She was said to be an early Zifu realm cultivator, but Wu Yi couldn't feel her spirit energy at all. The black-clothed man was the #1 assassin of the northern branch, Yulang. He was still at the peak of Foundation establishment, and it seemed like he didn't have enough spirit stones to exchange for a Yang purple jade. Wang Daoyuan was quite happy. As long as he didn't open his Zifu, he could take him down and refine him into his clone. Wu Yi and Yulang's clones exchanged for a Yang purple jade each. Scarlet Fox asked, Wu Yi, you accepted the mission to assassinate Wang Daoyuan of the Jade Spring Wang family. In the past 20 years, Wang Daoyuan has been living well, but there's been no news of you. How do you explain this? Wu Yi immediately recounted his experiences in the past 20 years according to Wang Daoyuan's altered memories. Scarlet Fox muttered, what you said is too bizarre. You were able to enter the outer regions of the sky/mountain range, and you were able to escape from an ancient cultivator's cave. Your words don't have any evidence or witnesses, so how can I believe you? Yulang, what do you think? Yulang replied, Hall Master, in my opinion, Wu Yi's words can't be trusted, but we can't be sure that he's lying either. Wu Yi is already at the 8th level of Foundation establishment, and is one of the top experts in our northern branch. We can't deal with him easily, so let's use the Truth Talisman. Scarlet Fox nodded and said to Wu Yi, in Yulang's opinion, we will use the Truth Questioning Talisman on you. Wu Yi, are you willing? Wu Yi cupped his hands and said, this subordinate is willing. Crimson Fox took out a jade box and opened it. Within it was a blood-red spirit talisman. Judging from the fluctuation of spiritual power emitted from the talisman, it was a 3rd-level low-grade questioning talisman. For cultivators in the late stage of Foundation establishment and the peak stage, their soul strength and spiritual sense cultivation were high enough. The probability of using the 2nd-level upper-grade questioning heart talisman was very high. To be on the safe side, he needed to use a 3rd-grade low-grade truth questioning talisman. The highest grade the truth questioning talisman could reach was 3rd-level lower grade. Any higher grade would be meaningless. A Zifu disciple's soul had transformed into a divine soul, and he had the protection of his Zifu disciple's Zifu disciple. The interrogation talisman was completely useless. The 3rd-order questioning heart talisman was prepared for cultivators in the late stage and peak stage of the Foundation establishment realm. Scarlet Fox handed the questioning heart talisman to Quiet Wolf. Yulang took the truth questioning talisman and walked in front of Wu Yi. He placed the truth questioning talisman on Wu Yi's forehead and activated it with his spiritual energy. In order to prevent other Zifu disciples from using their spiritual sense to activate the 3rd-order talisman, a special arrangement was made on the talisman. Only by injecting spiritual sense into the trigger point could the talisman be successfully activated. A Foundation establishment cultivator would still need to spend quite a bit of time to find the trigger point on the 3rd-order talisman. This wasn't like facing an enemy in battle. Using spiritual energy to activate the talisman was much simpler. After the truth questioning talisman was activated, Scarlet Fox asked Wu Yi more than 10 questions. Wu Yi's memories had been tampered with by Wang Daoyuan. Unless a Zifu disciple or higher directly searched his soul, they wouldn't be able to find any clues. Just by relying on the truth questioning talisman, they wouldn't be able to get anything out of him. Wu Yi answered all of Scarlet Fox's questions according to his tampered memories. Scarlet Fox waved her hand and the truth questioning talisman on Wu Yi's forehead fell to the ground, turning into a wisp of green smoke. She laughed lightly and said, what you said is indeed the truth. My northern mountain branch has gained another capable cultivator in the late stage of foundation establishment. Wu Yi bowed and apologized. Wu Yi is incompetent. My cultivation is above Wang Daoyuan's, but I wasn't able to obtain victory. Hall Master, please punish me. Scarlet Fox laughed. This isn't your fault. Even I, with my cultivation at the 5th level of foundation establishment, wouldn't have the confidence to win against the 3rd level Wang Daoyuan. Wu Yi didn't have any memories of Wang Daoyuan. Hearing these words, he felt extremely astonished. Scarlet Fox was someone from the Blood Wolf sect. The Blood Wolf sect was responsible for dealing with traitors and leakers. Every one of them was far stronger than those of the same level. Yet, Scarlet Fox said that he couldn't obtain victory with his 2-level cultivation advantage. Yu Lang also said, you just came from the sky-chopping mountain range. You don't know much about Wang Daoyuan's past 20 years. More than 10 years ago, the Netherworld sect and the Savage Sun sect had a gambling match. Both sects sent out cultivators from the early stage of foundation establishment to the late stage of Zifu disciple to duel. The winner of the duel would determine the distribution of the Spirit Stone Mine. With his cultivation at the 5th level of foundation establishment, he defeated 5 mid-stage foundation establishment cultivators from the Savage Sun sect. 3 of them were even at the 6th level of foundation establishment. Among the 3, one was a direct descendant of the Wei clan, one was a half-demon with the bloodline of the Black Flame Tiger, and the last one was a wind attribute cultivator. Among cultivators of the same level, they were all first-rate experts. The Wei clan ancestor and the Wang clan ancestor were close friends. Wang Daoyuan knew the weakness of the Wei clan. Defeating the Wei clan's direct descendant could be said to be a trick. However, defeating the half-demon and wind attribute cultivator relied on brute strength. He could condense the image of a golden rock. This image could be used in close combat and could be used for feather attacks. As long as he could condense the image of the golden rock, a 6th-level foundation establishment cultivator wouldn't be able to resist. After he obtained 5 consecutive victories, the Savage Sun sect sent out their top genius, Lei Wudao. He was a lightning attribute sword cultivator and had long been known to be invincible among cultivators of the same level. His cultivation was 1 level higher, but he was still heavily injured by Wang Daoyuan. On the other hand, Wang Daoyuan only suffered light injuries and lost after exhausting his spiritual energy. If the 2 of them fought at the same level, the outcome would be uncertain. Back then, when you assassinated him, did you see this golden rock image? Wu Yi's mouth opened wide in shock. I didn't expect the golden rock image to be so powerful. When I assassinated him back then, he did use the golden rock image. However, I had the spirit-binding silk cloak and hid behind the mountain rocks. He only used the golden rock image to search for me and didn't attack much. If not for the spirit-binding silk cloak, I'm afraid I would have died back then. Unfortunately, when I was escaping, the cloak was also damaged. Scarlet Fox laughed. It's good enough that you came back alive. That kid isn't someone you can deal with. Most of the people in the Blood Wolf clan are only at the standard of the Wei clan's direct descendant. Even the top figures can hardly compare to Lei Wudao. Wang Daoyuan's cultivation talent isn't much, but his fighting strength is comparable to Lei Wudao. Wu Yi nodded dispiritedly and didn't say anything else. Scarlet Fox continued, you're now an 8th-level foundation establishment cultivator. In our North Mountain branch, you can be considered one of the top experts. I'll keep your cave residence for you. Go back and take a good look at the recent information. Only then will you be able to take on important tasks in the future. Wu Yi cupped his hands and left the palace, walking back to his cave residence. After Wu Yi left, Scarlet Fox asked Yu Lang, do you think Wu Yi is reliable? Yu Lang sneered. Do you think I'm reliable? We're not direct descendants of the Blood Shadow like you. We only joined the Blood Shadow for the opportunity to advance. Wu Yi was raised by you since he was in the Qi refinement stage, while I joined halfway. You're asking me if he's reliable. Are you doubting him or me? As long as the blood shadow can provide the Yang purple jade and the purple cloudwood core, we're reliable. If we don't have these two things, we're unreliable. After speaking, Yu Lang walked out of the palace. Chapter 287. Scarlet Fox sighed and shook her head helplessly. She was a direct descendant of Blood Shadow, and her father was a mid-level member of Blood Shadow. When she was young, she was quickly sent to Blood Wolf after displaying her extraordinary cultivation talent. Although her talent was not the best in Blood Wolf, it was still top-notch. Her journey was smooth, and she reached the peak of foundation establishment in her 70s. As long as the top geniuses of Blood Wolf had enough contributions, they could directly exchange for Yang purple jade or purple cloudwood core. For someone of her level, she had to fight for the right to exchange with Blood Wolf members of the same level. In the competition, she shone brightly and defeated all her opponents, obtaining the right to exchange and successfully establishing her purple mansion. After Blood Wolf members established their purple mansion, they would be specially used to hunt down purple mansion targets and would be heavily nurtured. Those who performed well might enter the upper echelons. However, she was ostracized because she defeated the grandson of a Golden Core upper echelon in the competition for the right to exchange and did not receive any important tasks. That Golden Core upper echelon firmly believed that his grandson would win and even made a bet for that. In the end, that Golden Core lost the bet and lost a lot of money. He even embarrassed himself among the upper echelons. Back then, she was the #1 beauty in Blood Wolf. That Golden Core cultivator wanted to marry her, and that Golden Core cultivator was very supportive. Scarlet Fox embarrassed him, but as long as his grandson could marry her, he would be able to regain his lost face. He expressed that as long as she was willing to marry his grandson, he would entrust her with important tasks. However, Scarlet Fox was proud and arrogant back then. How could she be willing to marry a loser? That Golden Core cultivator was embarrassed once again. After that, Scarlet Fox was suppressed even more. Her father was sent out to carry out a dangerous mission and died. She was also disheartened and completely gave up on the idea of entering the upper echelons. She volunteered to be the branch hall master. This job was done by the worst batch of people in Blood Wolf, or the useless descendants of the upper echelons. That Golden Core upper echelon lost face twice in a row, and his losses were not small either. How could he let her have it easy? Therefore, he sent her to the Shanbei branch. She came to the Shanbei branch more than 100 years ago. At that time, the demons and Netherworld sect had yet to reach a reconciliation, and the humans of Shanbei were still suppressed. Blood Shadow was also a human force, and naturally, they did not have it easy and were often attacked by the demons. Until nearly 100 years ago, when the Underworld sect and the Demon Clan had reconciled and humans had entered the Northern Mountains, the Demon Clan had stopped suppressing the humans. The days in the Shanbei branch were also much better. Scarlet Fox also began to take in rogue cultivators to strengthen his strength. However, that Golden Core senior wouldn't let her off so easily. As soon as the Shanbei branch began to show signs of improvement, the headquarters had sent people over to seize the credit. They had placed a large number of people over, and they had even sent over an early-stage Zifu disciple vice hall master. Although there were more people in the Shanbei branch and their influence had increased greatly, the power that Scarlet Fox controlled had weakened instead. Moreover, her direct subordinates had been suppressed by the vice hall master. Cultivators like Wu Yi, whom she had personally nurtured, were rarely able to grow up. Later on, he directly recruited rogue cultivators into the branch to suppress the people sent by the Blood Shadow headquarters. Yu Lang was the representative of this group of people. Scarlet Fox's days here weren't too good either. His direct subordinates were too weak, the people sent by the headquarters didn't listen to him, and the loose cultivators were wild and untamed. In order to suppress the vice hall master, Yu Lang had directly talked back to her, but she had to endure it. As for Wu Yi, who was under her direct command, she wouldn't easily deal with him. All the Foundation establishment cultivators in the Shanbei branch had their own cave abodes underground, and Wu Yi was naturally no exception. He came to his cave abode and pretended to cultivate. Not long after, someone sent over a beast-skin book with the words, "Bounty Record," written on the cover. The Blood Shadow's rule was that assassinations of Zifu disciple and above were all done by the headquarters. The various branches would only take on Qi refinement and foundation establishment cultivators. The only cultivators recorded in the bounty book were Qi refinement and foundation establishment cultivators. The first page of the beast-skin book was a table of contents, and the second page was the Scarlet Beard Bandits' bounty. The Scarlet Beard Bandits currently had 7 foundation establishment cultivators and 2 of their leaders. Each of them had a bounty of 300,000 spirit stones, while the other 5 had bounties ranging from 50 to 100,000 spirit stones. There were also many foundation establishment cultivators from the various powers in the Shanbei branch, including cultivators from the Beiyuan sword sect. However, their bounties were all below 100,000 spirit stones. At the end of the foundation establishment cultivators' bounties, there was also Wang Daoyuan's bounty. The bounty record also recorded the target's basic information, including his age, cultivation, as well as his more famous battle achievements. The bounty record recorded his participation in the Battle of Guiyan Valley, the encirclement of the Scarlet Beard Bandits, the defeat of the Beast Tide, and his participation in the duel. However, the bounty record didn't mention his activities in the Skysplit Mountain range in detail. It only said that he had been in seclusion on Jade Song Mountain for the past 10 years. Through Wu Yi's doppelganger, Wang Daoyuan saw the records about himself and felt relieved. Even with the Blood Shadow's intelligence network, they didn't discover that he had disguised himself a few times, nor did they know that he was in the 7th stage of foundation establishment. As for his cultivation, it said that he was in the 5th stage of foundation establishment 10 years ago. Furthermore, he might not have used his full strength during the duel, so it was not recommended for assassins below the peak of foundation establishment to attack him. According to the bounty record, his head was currently worth 200,000 spirit stones. In the bounty record, it was only lower than the 2 leaders of the Scarlet Beard Bandits. Behind his bounty record was the 12th uncle, Wang Shui. His head was currently worth 100,000 spirit stones. This made Wang Daoyuan very happy. In the future, he could go and mock the 12th uncle. Wang Daoyuan transmitted the information he saw to his clone in the bounty record space, allowing them to record it in a jade scroll. Although this information was rather brief, it was still somewhat useful, especially the information regarding the Beiyuan sword sect and the Scarlet Beard Bandits. The Wang clan and these 2 forces would fight sooner or later. Having some understanding was much better than not knowing anything. 3 days later, a black-clothed man at the 3rd stage of foundation establishment came to Wu Yi's cave abode. The black-clothed man cupped his hands towards Wu Yi and said, "Lord Wu Yi, the Hall Master is looking for you. Please follow me." Wu Yi didn't say anything and followed behind the black-clothed man. The black-clothed man didn't bring him to the palace, but to the Scarlet Fox's door. The black-clothed man cupped his hands towards the door of the cave abode and said, "Hall Master, Lord Wu Yi is here." A voice sounded from within the cave abode, "You may leave." After the black-clothed man left, the cave abode's door opened and a fragrant wind blew over. The Scarlet Fox's voice sounded once more, "Come in." Wu Yi was extremely fearful of the Scarlet Fox and didn't dare to have any improper thoughts, walking in obediently. The Scarlet Fox's cave abode was very big. There was even a spring inside and many exotic flowers and herbs were planted. There was also an arched door on the back wall of the cave abode. Behind it should be the Scarlet Fox's boudoir. In the middle of the cave abode was a circular stone table about 3 feet in diameter. There were 4 stone chairs placed around the stone table. The Scarlet Fox was sitting on a stone chair with her legs crossed. Wu Yi was just about to bow and greet when the Scarlet Fox said, "There's no need for these empty formalities. When you returned this time, I originally wanted you to be a steward." However, the Deputy Hall Master didn't agree. He said that you haven't returned for more than 20 years. Even if you used the conscience-questioning talisman and nothing happened, there's still no guarantee that you didn't collude with other forces. To be on the safe side, I'll still conduct some tests for you. If you can pass the tests, I'll agree to let you be a steward. If you don't pass the tests, not only will you not be able to be a steward, you might even be punished. You're my man, so I won't let you be dealt with by the deputy hall master. This is something I prepared for you. Don't embarrass me. Finished talking, he threw a storage pouch to Wu Yi. Chapter 288. Wu Yi received the storage bag, hung it at his waist, and said with clasped hands, "Many thanks for Hall Head's help." Crimson Fox smiled and said, "You were groomed by me single-handedly, my direct subordinate. If I don't help my own direct subordinates, can I help others? Vice Hall Head suspects that you're colluding with the Netherworld sect. This test might be to make you kill the Netherworld sect's people. You go ahead and do it. If anything happens, I'll take responsibility for you." Wu Yi said solemnly, "Many thanks for Hall Head's great kindness. This subordinate will definitely do his best." Crimson Fox nodded his head in satisfaction and said, "You go then. When doing things, you have to remember that you're not Bloodshadow's people, but my, Crimson Fox's people." Wu Yi withdrew respectfully and returned to his abode. After returning to the abode, he opened the storage bag that Crimson Fox gave. One had to admit that Crimson Fox treated his direct subordinates really well. This storage bag really contained quite a number of good things. A high-grade Tier 2 long sword, a high-grade Tier 2 shield, and also a long robe mixed with a small amount of God-forbidding silkworm silk. Apart from this, there were also several medicinal pills. The long sword was pitch black throughout. The main material was also black gold. But the material quality was much higher than that middle-grade Tier 2 black gold sword. The refining method could not be mentioned in the same breath as well. The shield seemed to be refined from some kind of tortoise shell. The refining method was somewhat crude. The tortoise shell's damage was more severe. One could not tell what kind it was. However, this magic artifact's defensive power was really not weak. After a day, a Peak Foundation establishment cultivator came to Wu Yi's abode. Wu Yi clasped his hands and said, "Greetings, Lord Mou." This Mou was the Vice Hall Head's person. He himself was also transferred over from Bloodshadow's headquarters. However, his talent was not too good and had not entered Blood Wolf before. He was already 130 to 140 years old and had only just reached Peak Foundation establishment not long ago. And it was said that in Blood Wolf, one could be eliminated if they did not reach Peak Foundation establishment before 100 years old. Mou did not reply. After handing a jade slip to Wu Yi, he turned around and left. Wu Yi plunged his divine sense into the jade slip. Inside the jade slip was the test content that the Vice Hall Head gave. Just as Crimson Fox expected previously, the Vice Hall Head's test was indeed to make him kill the Netherworld sect's people. However, this test was not the assassination that Blood Shadow was good at, but an ambush. According to Blood Shadow's intelligence, a Netherworld sect caravan would depart from Gold Goose City in 10 days. They would carry a batch of goods through Guiyan Valley and arrive at Guiyan Market. Wu Yi's mission was to intercept the caravan with a few Blood Shadow Mid-Foundation establishment cultivators. Half of the seized goods would go to the North Mountain branch, and the other half would go to the cultivators on the mission. As the main force, Wu Yi could take half of the resources obtained by the cultivators who went on missions, which was a quarter of the total amount. There would be 4 Foundation establishment cultivators in the Underworld sect's caravan. One of them would be at the 7th level of Foundation establishment, one at the 5th level of Foundation establishment, and 2 at the 3rd level of Foundation establishment. Wu Yi had stayed in the space of the spiritual pearl for so many years, so he wasn't completely freeloading. Wang Daoyuan had long had the idea of letting his clone, Wu Yi, infiltrate Blood Shadow's inner workings, which was why he had let him cultivate the sword cultivation legacy he had obtained from Li Qingchuan. Wu Yi already knew the heaven-cleaving sword and the myriad sword art, so even if he learned more, it wouldn't be too conspicuous. Although he didn't have much actual combat experience, with the sword cultivation legacy, his combat strength wasn't considered weak among those of the same level. It wouldn't be a problem for him to deal with an ordinary 7th level Foundation establishment cultivator. Furthermore, a cultivator sent by the Underworld sect to transport goods couldn't be considered very strong. It wouldn't be a problem for Wu Yi to take him down. On Blood Shadow's side, they allowed Wu Yi to bring 3 mid-Foundation establishment cultivators. In terms of cultivation, they could crush the other party. However, most of Blood Shadow's cultivators were only good at sneak attacks and not head-on confrontations. If the sneak attack failed, the 3 mid-Foundation establishment cultivators on Blood Shadow's side might not be able to defeat the 3 mid- and early-stage Foundation establishment cultivators of the Underworld sect. The location of the ambush this time was still in the Carriage Gorge area of the Guiyan Valley. The Underworld sect had suffered many losses there and was quite vigilant. It would be a little difficult to kill them in one shot. To be safe, Wang Daoyuan planned to sneak over first and personally control his clone, Wu Yi, when the time came. With his combat experience, Wu Yi's cultivation, and the sword cultivation legacy, even if the Underworld sect's 7th level Foundation establishment cultivator was a wily old fox, he wouldn't be able to escape. As for the other 3 Foundation establishment cultivators, he couldn't be bothered to care about them. It would be better if they died. He could take half of the goods for himself. Blood Shadow's side set off 5 days later. After Wang Daoyuan received the news, he immediately rushed to the Carriage Gorge. He discovered an underground rock crevice more than 15 kilometers east of the Carriage Gorge and more than 50 meters underground. Although the rock crevice wasn't big, it was enough for a person to hide in. He hid in the rock crevice and waited for the day of the ambush. 5 days later, it was time for Wu Yi to set off. Mou brought him to the hall where the hall master was. At this moment, there were 6 people in the hall. The hall master was still sitting on the main seat and Yu Lang was sitting on the right. On the left, there was a person wearing a tight black robe. His face was covered with a mask and his head was wrapped tightly in a black cloth. Judging from her curvaceous figure, she was undoubtedly a woman. This person was the Shanbei Division's deputy hall master, Xian Martin. His cultivation was at the early stage Sifu realm. It was said that he was once a member of the Blood Wolf. The Golden Core cultivator who suppressed Scarlet Fox was quite smart. If he had sent a man, he would have been fooled by Scarlet Fox. To deal with a beauty like Scarlet Fox, he had to send a woman. The other 3 people in the hall were all at the mid-stage Foundation establishment stage and were wearing black robes. After Wu Yi entered the hall, Scarlet Fox said softly, "Wu Yi, in order to help you complete the mission, the Vice Hall Master sent 3 trusted aides to assist you. You have to perform well and not let down the Vice Hall Master's kind intentions." Only now did Wu Yi understand what Crimson Fox meant when he gave him the magic artifact. Scarlet Fox wanted him to remember that he was Scarlet Fox's man and not Blood Shadow's man. This meant that he had to try his best to kill the 3 of them. The authority to lead this mission was in his hands and Wang Daoyuan was personally controlling it. So what if he killed the 3 of them? Scarlet Fox gave a few more instructions and Wu Yi set off with the 3 of them towards the Carriage Gorge to set up an ambush. After arriving at the Carriage Gorge, the 4 of them set up an ambush on a mountain 5 kilometers west of the Carriage Gorge. There were many small mountains on the east side and the terrain was relatively flat. The west side had high mountains and dense forests which were convenient for concealment. After waiting for 5 days, a caravan finally arrived at the south side of the Carriage Gorge. This caravan had a total of 9 carriages and a total of 18 cultivators driving and escorting the carriages. The 4 of them immediately executed the earth escape technique and arrived at the side of the Carriage Gorge. When the caravan entered the Carriage Gorge, the 4 of them were only around 2,000 feet away from the Carriage Gorge and discovered that the 18 people in the caravan were all Qi refinement cultivators. When the caravan arrived at the north end of the Carriage Gorge, they had no choice but to stop. The gorge's entrance was blocked by a huge rock that was over 100 feet tall and as wide as the gorge. Wu Yi transmitted his voice to the other 3 people, this huge rock isn't something that chi refinement cultivators can move. In a while, there will definitely be foundation establishment cultivators coming out to move the huge rock. As long as there are mid-stage or early-stage foundation establishment cultivators that come out, immediately attack and kill them. If you can kill one of the other foundation establishment cultivators, it will be easy for us to fight 4 against 3. One of the 3 asked via voice transmission, "Then what are you doing?" Wu Yi reprimanded via voice transmission, "If any of you have the confidence to kill a 7th-stage foundation establishment cultivator, I can make the first move. If you don't have the ability, then shut up and listen to orders. If you don't listen to orders and cause the mission to fail, when the Hall Master and Vice Hall Master pursue the matter, I might be severely punished and all of you will definitely die." Blood Shadow's punishment for disobeying orders was extremely severe. If the mission failed because of disobeying orders, the person who disobeyed orders would definitely die. The 3 of them stopped talking and quietly waited for the target to appear. Chapter 289. After the caravan stopped in front of the boulder, a few peak-stage chi refinement cultivators who were escorting the caravan took out superhuman strength talismans and pushed the boulder. This boulder was at least 40 to 50 kilograms. Wu Yi and the rest had also pushed it down from a high place. Furthermore, it was stuck between the walls of the canyon. Even foundation establishment cultivators could not move it, let alone these chi refinement cultivators. The peak stage chi refinement cultivators pushed for a long time, but the boulder did not move at all. Even when they cast spells to attack the boulder, they only managed to get rid of some rock shards. If this continued, it would probably take 10 days to half a month to shatter the boulder. One of the escorting cultivators ran to the middle carriage and said a few words to it. Soon, a foundation establishment cultivator at the 3rd level walked out of the carriage. He came to the boulder and pushed it a few times, but the boulder still did not move at all. He told everyone to retreat, then took out his flying sword and slashed at the boulder. Just as his flying sword hit the boulder, 3 sword beams flew over from the west side of the canyon. The cultivator did not have time to withdraw his sword and immediately cast a defensive spell. Unfortunately, he was too slow. Before he could cast his spell, the 3 sword beams had arrived. His entire body was sliced into 4 parts by the 3 sword beams, and the ground was dyed red. His flying sword hit the boulder. This boulder was not very hard for a foundation establishment cultivator, and a 1-foot-deep sword mark was left on it. The person died and the flying sword lost control, getting stuck on the boulder. The chi refinement cultivator was so frightened that he ran back the way he came. The 3 foundation establishment cultivators that Wu Yi brought with him laughed and appeared. One of them said, "These resources are ours." An old voice came from the second carriage. "A few brats. You're too naive." Before he finished speaking, a sword flew out of the carriage. The 3 of them also controlled their flying swords and blocked this attack together. At this moment, 2 more flying swords flew out from the 4th and 8th carriages, attacking Blood Shadow and the other 2. The 3 of them recalled their flying swords. They did not have time to defend and could only dodge in a sorry state. In the caravan, 3 foundation establishment cultivators had already walked out of the carriage. They were at the 7th level, 5th level and 3rd level respectively. The 7th level foundation establishment cultivator was a white-haired old man, the 5th level foundation establishment cultivator was a middle-aged man, and the 3rd level foundation establishment cultivator was a young man. Wang Daoyuan sensed the situation of his doppelganger Wu Yi and was secretly shocked by Blood Shadow's ability to gather information. This caravan should have set off from Golden Goose City 4 or 5 days ago, but Blood Shadow was able to get the accurate information 10 days ago. It seemed that Golden Goose City had also been infiltrated by Blood Shadow. The white-haired old man from the underworld sect said, "With this old man here, the 3 Daoyu can forget about taking away this batch of resources. I can forgive you for killing my men. You'd better leave quickly so that you don't lose your life." A cultivator from Blood Shadow laughed and said, "Old man, if you know what's good for you, then hurry up and leave. If he ran away now, he would still be able to keep his life. By the time we make our move, it will be too late for you to leave. The three from the Netherworld sect took back their flying swords, and then sent them out again. The three from Blood Shadow also sent out their flying swords, confronting their opponents head-on. This time, it was a one-on-one fight. On the Netherworld sect side, the white-haired old man directly defeated his opponent. The middle-aged cultivator had a slight advantage, and the third-level foundation building cultivator was only at a disadvantage, but not completely defeated. At this time, Wang Daoyuan completely took over the command of his doppelganger. He was somewhat speechless. These idiots' combat power was really trash. A 6th-level foundation building cultivator against a 7th-level foundation building cultivator. It was understandable that he couldn't win, but what did it mean to be crushed? Naturally, he wouldn't make his move now. He would wait until the three from Blood Shadow died in battle, and it would be best if 1 or 2 cultivators from the Netherworld sect died before making his move. In order to prevent the three from running away directly, he transmitted his voice. This 7th-level foundation building cultivator from the Netherworld sect is not ordinary. I'm not sure I can beat him in a head-on fight. If we drag on for too long, the reinforcements from the Netherworld sect will arrive, and we'll all die. If we want to take him down as soon as possible, we can only launch a sneak attack. You guys force out his weakness, and I'll try to injure him severely in one blow. The three of them cursed Wu Yi's 18 generations of ancestors in their hearts, but now they were in a difficult position. If they ran away, they would definitely die. Their only hope was that Wu Yi's sneak attack would succeed. 2 of them besieged the white-haired old man, trying to force out his weakness, while the other held back the middle-aged and young cultivators. The attacks of Blood Shadow and the other 2 were too simple. They only had some Dharma spells that were fast and stealthy, but not powerful enough. Sneak attacks were fine, but in a head-on fight, they couldn't exert much combat power at all. After a few minutes, the cultivator from Blood Shadow who was holding back the middle-aged and young cultivators couldn't take it anymore. He was pierced back and forth by the flying sword several times and died. The other 2 joined forces to fight the white-haired old man, but they could only gain a slight upper hand. It would be difficult for them to win even if they fought for another 2 hours. Now, the situation had become 2 against 3. With the white-haired old man around, it would be difficult for the 2 of them to escape. The 2 cultivators from the Netherworld sect who were free to take on an opponent for the white-haired old man. 100 breaths later, the white-haired old man cast a few Dharma spells consecutively, severely injuring his opponent. Of the 3 from Blood Shadow, only 1 of them was intact. Wang Daoyuan didn't dare to delay any longer. If the 2 of them lost their combat power, Wu Yi's doppelganger wouldn't be able to deal with the 3 of them. At that moment, the white-haired old man was chasing after the heavily injured cultivator from Blood Shadow. He controlled his doppelganger and used the myriad sword art to attack the middle-aged cultivator. His doppelganger wasn't strong enough. Even if he succeeded in sneak attacking the white-haired old man, it would be difficult to kill him in a single strike. Instead of injuring all 10 of his fingers, it was better to break 1 of his fingers. The young cultivator was too weak and there was no point in killing him. The best target was the middle-aged cultivator. Dozens of sword chi phantoms shot over and the middle-aged cultivator cast a defensive Dharma spell to defend against them. His casting speed was fast enough and he successfully cast the golden armor art. However, it was still insufficient in the face of the myriad sword art. The phantoms of the long swords attacked him. The middle-aged cultivator's golden armor art could only block 5 of the phantoms of the long swords before it was shattered. The phantoms of the long swords behind him sliced him into pieces. At that moment, the white-haired old man had also finished off the heavily injured cultivator from Blood Shadow. When he saw that his companion was killed, he was furious. It was now 2 against 2 and Blood Shadow had the upper hand in terms of cultivation. Wang Daoyuan smiled. I'll leave that level 3 foundation establishment to you. Kill him as soon as possible and we'll work together to kill this level 7 foundation establishment cultivator. After we're done, we'll split this batch of resources equally. Hearing that, the Blood Shadow cultivator became spirited. Although he was a subordinate of Deputy Hall Master Xian Martin, he wasn't from Blood Shadow's headquarters. Instead, he was a local cultivator roped in by Xian Martin. He joined Blood Shadow just to make a living and get benefits. Why couldn't he follow anyone else? Wang Daoyuan naturally didn't want the last Blood Shadow cultivator to live. When dealing with the white-haired old man, he didn't take the initiative to attack. Instead, he used stalling tactics to give him a chance to sneak attack the Blood Shadow cultivator. The Blood Shadow cultivator attacked the young cultivator wildly. The young cultivator was only at level 3 foundation establishment and was soon beaten to the point where he couldn't fight back. The white-haired old man was anxious. Wu Yi alone was enough to stall him. If another one came, he would definitely die. He condensed the phantoms of the flaming lion to stall Wu Yi and charged towards the Blood Shadow cultivator. Seeing this scene through his doppelganger, Wang Daoyuan smiled. The cultivators of the Netherworld sect really knew him well. He did not stop the white-haired old man. Instead, he shattered the phantoms of the flaming lion and charged towards the young cultivator on his sword. When he arrived before the young cultivator, he channeled the flying sword beneath his feet and released a few phantoms of the sword, killing the young cultivator. On the other side, the white-haired old man released a flame as well, burning the Blood Shadow cultivator into ashes. Wang Daoyuan was delighted. The mission given by Scarlet Fox was completed and the next step was to take care of this white-haired old man. The white-haired old man smiled. Daoyu, leave now and Netherworld sect will let bygones be bygones. How about that? Wu Yi smiled without replying and released the 10,000 sword art once more. For the sake of speed, he only condensed 5 phantoms of the sword. The white-haired old man immediately controlled his sword and shattered the phantoms of the sword. Wu Yi seized the opportunity to release heaven-cleaving sword. 6 breaths later, a gigantic sword phantom that was more than 100 feet long appeared and slashed towards the white-haired old man. The white-haired old man was also a wily old fox. He could tell that even though the gigantic sword phantom was powerful, it wasn't fast enough. He controlled his sword to avoid the direction of the gigantic sword phantom's attack and hid behind a gigantic rock. At the same time, he began to accumulate spirit energy in preparation to release a powerful dermic art. Wang Daoyuan controlled his doppelganger and changed the direction of the gigantic sword phantom instantly while increasing its speed. The gigantic sword slashed down towards the gigantic rock and the white-haired old man was sliced into 2 together. Chapter 290. The Foundation Establishment cultivators were all dead and the Qi Refinement cultivators had fled. Wu Yi was the only one alive. He collected the storage pouches of the Foundation Establishment cultivators, then searched through all 9 carriages. Most of the things in the carriages were raw materials, refined weapon refinement materials, grade 1 and grade 2 elixirs etc. Right now, Wang Daoyuan was in urgent need of grade 3 elixirs so that he could gather enough for the Meridian Protecting Elixir to become an inferior grade 3 elixir refinement master. The ordinary grade 2 elixirs of Netherworld sect were not of much use to him. However, there were a few superior grade 2 elixirs that were of great use to him. Wang Daoyuan controlled his clone, Wu Yi, to take some of the superior grade 2 elixirs and weapon refinement materials. He did not dare to take too much. Otherwise, it would be troublesome if the Vice Hall Master pursued the matter. Not taking anything was not the style of itinerant cultivators. Furthermore, Wang Daoyuan was not rich right now. He only had slightly more than 200,000 spirit stones on hand. If he wanted to exchange for the yin-yang purple jade from Blood Shadow, he would need 600,000 to 700,000 spirit stones per piece. Even if he took some from his family, he would still be short of money. He had to try his best to earn more spirit stones. Even a mosquito's leg was meat. These things could be worth a lot of spirit stones as well. He could not keep the resources he intercepted with him either. Instead, he stored them in storage bags and hid them east of Carriage Gorge, not far from where Wang Daoyuan was hiding. After searching the corpses and hiding the loot, Wu Yi sent a message to Scarlet Fox, reporting the success of the operation and requesting the hall master to send someone over to receive them. After all, he did not have the ability to take away all 9 carriages of items alone, especially those weapon refinement materials which were extremely dense. A lump of metal material that was about a foot in diameter already exceeded the upper limit of the storage bag's capacity. He would need at least 100 to 200 storage bags to take away all of these items. After the news spread, more than 10 peak chi refinement cultivators rushed out of the forest west of Carriage Gorge in less than 15 minutes. Each of them had around 20 storage bags on them. The leader cupped his fists towards Wu Yi. "Lord Wu Yi, we were sent by the hall master to receive you." These people were cleanup cultivators specially groomed by Blood Shadow. Although their cultivation talents were not great, they were extremely good at cleaning up traces, moving and hiding the loot. Assassinations and robberies like this were usually coordinated by cultivators who would deal with the aftermath. Their arrival was equivalent to handing over the goods. As for the rest of the matter, there was no need for action cultivators to participate. Wu Yi didn't care about that anymore and immediately fled on his sword. Wang Daoyuan took the loot that Wu Yi had hidden near him and escaped underground. He and his doppelganger did not immediately return to Wild Goose City Square. Instead, they lingered around the city square for a few days before entering the city square from the east. This was because the eastern part of the market was the half-fiends' territory. The half-fiends were in a state of disunity and were neutral. Therefore, most itinerant cultivators liked to mingle in this area. The itinerant cultivators who entered and left the market from the east were the most numerous. Hence, they would not be conspicuous among the itinerant cultivators. Wang Daoyuan had just returned to the market when he heard the news. The cultivators of the Netherworld sect were furious and had sent cultivators to cause trouble for the Guiyuan sword sect. The Guiyuan sword sect was also confused. They were sitting in the mountains, but the trouble came from the sky. The Guiyuan sword sect explained the situation to the Netherworld sect through the half-demon tribes that they had business with. The late-stage foundation establishment cultivators of the Guiyuan sword sect had not come out recently. Their sect's inheritance was very widespread and there were many people who knew 1 or 2 moves. Someone must have framed them. How could the cultivators of the Netherworld sect believe their enemies? The people and things at the scene of the incident did not even have ashes left. Only a huge rock that had been cut in half was split in half by a sword. From the marks left on the ground, it was obviously caused by the heaven-cleaving sword. For the heaven-cleaving sword to be so powerful, it was definitely not something that an itinerant cultivator who had learned 1 or 2 moves could do. The Guiyuan sword sect was speechless. Without the sword kinesis technique that was unique to the Guiyuan sword sect, the heaven-cleaving sword was not very powerful. The people of the Guiyuan sword sect also received the news that Wang Daoyuan knew the Guiyuan sword sect's dharma spells and they were very powerful. They used Wang Daoyuan as an example. The Netherworld sect did not care about them at all. The Wang family was in the limelight in the Netherworld sect and was deeply trusted by the sect master. Within the Netherworld sect, the Wang family had Purple Mansion elders and disciples who were under the tutelage of the native elders. They also held positions in the Netherworld sect. This treatment was better than most of the family members and outsiders. Besides, the Wang family started out as a miner and had always been worried about where to sell their ores. In recent years, they had expanded their territory in the sky/mountain range and opened up hundreds of acres of spirit fields. They also did not lack spirit herbs. Giving up a good future and risking the destruction of his family to rob the Netherworld sect of resources, and resources that he did not need. Anyone with a brain would not do such a stupid thing. Was Wang Daoyuan a fool? Who said that he was a fool? Those who had dealt with Wang Daoyuan before would vomit in their faces. Especially the cultivators of the Cruel Sun Palace. They had been cheated badly during the duel between the 2 sections. And the goods from the Netherworld sect were at most 100,000 spirit stones. After the Wang family built the flying boat, there were rumors that Wang Daoyuan was proficient in alchemy, artifact, and talisman arrays. Would such a person lack spirit stones? If he could reach the level of a second-level superior grade alchemy, artifact, and talisman array master, earning 10 or 20,000 spirit stones a year would be like child's play. Wang Daoyuan could do all three and was also proficient in array formations. Would such a person risk his life for a mere 100,000 spirit stones? No one would believe that it was Wang Daoyuan who did it. The blame was firmly pinned on the head of the Beiyuan sword sect and there was no way to shake it off. The situation in the Shanbei Mountains that had been peaceful for a few years was stirred up once more. The Netherworld sect used this as an excuse to increase the garrison strength of the Guiyan market. This time round, the Netherworld sect had a sufficient reason and it was the Shanbei Mountains that took the initiative to stir up trouble. As long as the matter was not blown out of proportion, the demons and half-demons could not say anything. Wang Daoyuan also returned to his own crafting workshop and started crafting artifacts. What did Blood Shadow have to do with me if he pretended to be someone from the Beiyuan sword sect to rob the Netherworld sect of their resources? The clone, Wu Yi, returned to the underground hideout of Blood Shadow and arrived at the meeting hall. Scarlet Fox sat high above while the Vice Hall Master, Xian Martin, sat on the left. Both of them wore masks and their expressions could not be seen. Wu Yi bowed. "Greetings, Hall Master." He then bowed to Xian Martin. "Greetings, Vice Hall Master." Scarlet Fox said calmly, "No need for formalities. You did well this time round. Not only did you complete the mission, you also had the Beiyuan sword sect to take the blame." Even though she tried her best to control her voice so that others could not hear anything, her entire body was trembling slightly. It was obvious that she was extremely emotional. Wang Daoyuan, the clone of Wu Yi with his panoramic perception, saw something that he should not have seen and circulated his water spirit energy to calm himself down. The Vice Hall Master, Xian Martin, asked coldly, "Wu Yi, you came back unscathed while the three people I sent out are dead. Don't you think you owe me an explanation?" This Vice Hall Master's voice was rather pleasant to the ears. Wu Yi did not hide anything and recounted the entire process of the battle. The rule of Blood Shadow was that it only depended on whether the mission could be completed. The life and death of manpower did not matter. It was perfectly normal for him to let the three of them hold back the Netherworld sect cultivators while he waited for an opportunity to strike. Xian Martin had nothing to say and snorted coldly before walking out of the meeting hall. Only Wu Yi and Scarlet Fox were left in the hall. Scarlet Fox laughed heartily and her entire body was trembling violently. Even though Wu Yi was extremely afraid of her, his qi and blood were unstable at this moment. On the other side, Wang Daoyuan seemed extremely calm after consuming more than 10 black jade lotus seeds in a single breath. After laughing for a long time, Scarlet Fox said to Wu Yi, "There's a total of 90,000 spirit stones in this batch of resources. Since the other three are dead, you'll get half of it. I'll round it up for you and give you 50,000 spirit stones." With that, Scarlet Fox walked out of the hall. Thereafter, Wu Yi heard Scarlet Fox's voice transmission through her spirit consciousness. "Come to my cave abode at night. I have something to discuss." Those words could easily cause a misunderstanding. Even a gentleman like Wang Daoyuan could not help but think in the wrong direction. Chapter 291. At night, Wu Yi quietly arrived at the entrance of Scarlet Fox's cave. Scarlet Fox was a dignified Zifu realm cultivator. Her divine sense was extremely powerful and she naturally discovered that Wu Yi was outside. Wu Yi was just about to knock when the door to the cave opened. Scarlet Fox's voice sounded by his ear, "Come in." Wu Yi walked into the cave and the door behind him immediately closed. Just like last time, Scarlet Fox sat beside the stone table with her legs crossed. The only difference was that there was a wine jar and 2 wine bowls on the stone table. She was drinking wine. Wu Yi bowed and said, "Greetings, Hall Master." Seeing Wu Yi walk in, she waved her jade hand and the wine flew out of the jar and landed in a bowl. Scarlet Fox smiled, "No need to be so courteous, drink." Before she finished speaking, the wine bowl that was just filled flew towards Wu Yi. He caught the wine bowl and drained it in one gulp. Scarlet Fox was wearing a mask and naturally couldn't drink wine normally. The wine in the bowl formed a stream of water and entered through the gap between her neck and the mask. She then made a swallowing motion. After drinking the wine, Scarlet Fox no longer had the solemnity she had in the meeting hall and actually started to dance like a little girl. In the end, she actually walked in front of Wu Yi without caring about her image and patted his shoulder, smiling, "You've really made me proud this time. You took the resources of the Netherworld sect cleanly and even took care of that bitch's subordinates. Since that bitch came to the Shanbei branch, she's been causing trouble for me. This time, she finally suffered in your hands. What I didn't expect was that you could even drag the Origin Sword sect in as a scapegoat and even save me the trouble of dealing with the aftermath." At this moment, the two of them were more than a foot apart. Wu Yi was also somewhat unable to control himself at this moment. His heartbeat was rapidly rising and his face started to turn red. On the other side, Wang Daoyuan took out a handful of inky jade lotus seeds from the space and directly stuffed them into his mouth without even counting them. He swallowed them and started to refine them. He relied on the Yin Qi within the lotus seeds to suppress his rampaging Qi and blood. Suddenly, he felt that his nose was slightly hot. He wiped his nose and looked at his fingers. Then, he covered his nose and said, "This clone is really useless." He couldn't control himself just like that. "I only had some red snot flow and my heart was completely unaffected. This old man has lived for 2 lifetimes and has lived for more than 100 years. What kind of situation has this old man not seen? How could he be defeated by such a small trick?" After saying that, he cast rejuvenation on his nose. The effect of rejuvenation was pretty good. The red snot immediately stopped flowing. Crimson Fox noticed Wu Yi's abnormality as well, and realized that he had lost his composure. She quickly sat back down on the stone chair and took out a storage bag, saying, "This is your reward this time, a total of 50,000 spirit stones. There's also a steward's token inside. From now on, you're the 4th steward of the Shanbei branch." He cupped his hands and said, "Thank you for your guidance, Hall Master." Crimson Fox said with a light smile, "So long as you remember that you're my subordinate and work well for me, you'll absolutely have no lack of benefits. Now that you're a manager, you need more people. I don't have enough people on my side, so I can't transfer them to you. It's better if you recruit them yourself." The members of the Shanbei branch were mainly divided into 2 groups. One was the external affairs cultivator, and the other was the direct cultivator. There were many cultivators in charge of external affairs, including Qi refinement cultivators and foundation establishment cultivators. These cultivators were under the command of various stewards. Usually, the Blood Shadow assassins outside were this group of people. The direct subordinates were directly led by the Hall Master and Vice Hall Master. Some of these direct subordinates were brought over from the headquarters, while some were promoted by ordinary assassins. These people were outstanding in certain aspects, such as strong combat strength, well-informed information, and those who dealt with the aftermath. They were all direct subordinates. They were the direct subordinates that the Hall Master and Vice Hall Master focused on nurturing. They were also the seedlings for future stewards. Usually, they wouldn't carry out assassination missions, but would deal with the aftermath. When the external affairs cultivators failed the mission and leaked the news, they would be dealt with by the direct subordinates. The 3 cultivators who were killed by Wu Yi were the direct subordinates of the Vice Hall Master. However, they were just promoted from ordinary assassins and weren't brave enough. After being scared by Wu Yi, they were terrified. It wasn't easy to nurture direct subordinates. Not only did they have to be capable, but they also had to be loyal. This was also the reason why Crimson Fox was so happy. Before Wu Yi, there were a total of 3 stewards in the Shanbei branch. The Vice Hall Master had 2 subordinates, while Crimson Fox only had 1 subordinate, Yu Lang, who didn't listen to orders. The cultivators that Crimson Fox nurtured herself were either roped in or killed by the Vice Hall Master. In order to prevent all her subordinates from being killed, she took in most of her trusted subordinates as her direct subordinates, leaving only a few who weren't in an important position under Yu Lang. Previously, Wu Yi was the external affairs cultivator under Yu Lang. Now, Wu Yi was the fourth steward. At the very least, in terms of the number of stewards, Crimson Fox could compete with the Mystic Marten. Of course, Crimson Fox was still far behind in terms of middle and bottom-level cultivators. Wu Yi said solemnly, "I won't let you down, Hall Master." Crimson Fox waved his hand. "You may leave. Whether or not I can suppress the Vice Hall Master will depend on you." Wu Yi left gratefully and returned to his cave abode to prepare for the recruitment of subordinates. After that, there wasn't much to pay attention to on Wu Yi's side. Wang Daoyuan began to do his own work. After all, he had to do business since he was running a weapon refinement shop. He was still hoping to earn spirit stones from refining weapons to exchange for Yang purple jade, so he had to do his business well. The 6 storage bags that Wu Yi's clone obtained from searching the corpse and some of the resources were all in his hands. These 7 people were not very rich. In the 7 storage bags, there were only a little more than 20,000 spirit stones. There were not many elixirs, spirit talismans, and other items. The only dermic weapon was a sword for each of them. Since they were not itinerant cultivators, it was normal for them to not have many items with them. Together, all of those dermic weapons were worth around 30,000 spirit stones. However, he could not sell those items directly and had to change their appearances and refine them. Just as he was refining the 7 swords, a customer arrived. It was the half-demon woman from the White Fox tribe. She brought 2 young and beautiful women with her and walked straight to the backyard. When she saw that Wang Daoyuan was refining weapons, she did not dare to disturb him. There was a rule of not revealing one's abilities in the various arts of immortal cultivation. She would naturally not violate that taboo. Wang Daoyuan had already noticed her arrival and was refining one of the swords in his hands. After forging it into shape, he was not in a hurry to inscribe patterns and went out to welcome her. After exiting the weapon refinement shop, he cupped his hands and said, "Dao Yu, I am honored by your presence. Please forgive me for not going out to meet you." The woman smiled and said, "Dao Yu, you don't have to be so polite. My name is Biyao, you can just call me by my name. I'm here to ask Dao Yu to help me refine a few dermic weapons. I've brought all the materials and requirements." Biyao handed the 2 storage bags to Wang Daoyuan and continued, "I saw that Wu Dao Yu was also alone, so I brought 2 juniors from the tribe to take care of Dao Yu." Wang Daoyuan took the storage bags and said, "I'll take the job, but forget about the people. I've already sent a message to an old friend of mine. After a while, he will come over to help me. My friend is also a weapon refinement master, so he can help me and look after the shop. Miss Bai, you don't have to worry about it." Biyao was instantly interested and asked, "I wonder if Dao Yu is willing to become friends with the White Fox tribe?" Chapter 292. Wang Daoyuan had a strange expression on his face. Is the White Fox tribe trying to improve their breeds? Why are they always looking for someone to marry into their family? He replied, "My friend is also focused on cultivation and is not interested in the matters between men and women. I'm really sorry." Biyao looked disappointed. "That's too bad. If any of Wu Daoyu's friends have such intentions, Wu Daoyu can help to act as a go-between." Wang Daoyuan was completely speechless. No matter what, he was the mastermind behind the changes in Shanbei. Why did the people of the White Fox tribe think that he was a matchmaker? If he had known this would happen, he would rather die of poverty than rent a shop in the White Fox tribe. However, the shop's location was not bad, and business was really good. He had not been in the shop for the past few days because of Wu Yi's clone. However, he still sold 2 Dharma weapons and earned 5,000 to 6,000 spirit stones. After sending Biyao away, Wang Daoyuan opened 2 storage bags. One of them contained a few upper-grade and middle-grade level 2 materials for refining Dharma weapons, while the other one contained 4 jade slips. Fox demons were one of the few species that were famous for their divine consciousness and were proficient in the art of seduction. The half-demon of the white fox tribe might also have such an inheritance. He did not dare to check the jade slips rashly, in case he fell into the trap of the white fox tribe. He sent the jade slips into the space of the spirit pearl for his clone, Bai Sheng, to check. After Bai Sheng checked the jade slips, he did not find anything wrong. The 4 jade slips each recorded the refining method of a Dharma weapon. One of them was a long sword, one was a shield, one was a jade hairpin, and one was a flying Dharma weapon. The long sword and shield were refined with slightly different materials, but there was nothing else. The jade hairpin was a support-type Dharma weapon, but it was required to be able to attack, defend, and assist in cultivation. Its attacking effect was similar to that of a flying sword. Its defensive function was to create a defensive light shield, assist in cultivation, and add on a spirit-gathering function. It was not difficult to have a single function. However, it was more difficult to have 3 functions. The more functions there were, the more tool patterns were required. The jade hairpin was only a few inches long and was not even as thick as a chopstick. One could imagine how difficult it would be to inscribe so many tool inscriptions in such a small space. Moreover, different tool patterns with different functions would interfere with each other. The closer he got, the stronger the interference. Wang Daoyuan was rather excited about the last type of flying Dharma artifact. The legacy of blacksmithing in his hands was relatively ordinary. Even the crafting techniques recorded in the 5 elements spiritual master's experience were not of a high level. After all, the 5 elements Taoist majored in the art of array formations. He only practiced the art of refining for the convenience of refining array cores. The artifacts recorded in his artifact forging technique were relatively common and simple, and there were very few types. It could be considered as a textbook for third-rank blacksmiths. There was no problem in using it to raise the level of blacksmithing, but in terms of practical application, the textbook was completely insufficient. Lei Yanjinren's refining experience only recorded how to raise one's refining level, and did not specifically introduce the refining method of a particular Dharma artifact. The refining legacy given by the Netherworld sect was even worse. It could barely be used as a textbook. Although Wang Daoyuan's refining skills were not low, the types of magic tools that he could refine were still too few, and his refining methods were too simple. This was especially so for tool patterns, which he had mastered were relatively common. Of course, if he knew the principles and combination of these tool patterns, he could study other formation patterns. However, it would take a long time. With reference, he could improve on the foundation of the existing tool patterns, and the efficiency would be much higher. The 4 jade slips that Beiyuan had given him were of great value to him as a reference. This was especially so for the flying Dharma artifact, which was extremely valuable. This flying Dharma artifact was also a boat-type Dharma artifact, but it was different from a flying boat. The core function of a flying boat was achieved by an array formation. This flying Dharma artifact was called the crane feather boat, and its flying function was achieved by the tool patterns and the characteristics of the materials used. Compared to a flying boat, the crane feather boat was extremely small. It was only 5 feet long and 1 foot wide, and its load was also very small. It could only accommodate 3 people at most. The crane feather boat had an advantage over a flying boat, and that was its speed of flight. At its normal speed, it could reach more than 3,000 miles in 2 hours. At full power, it could reach more than 4,000 miles in 2 hours, which was even faster than a flying warship of the same level. Ordinary late-stage Foundation establishment cultivators could only fly less than 3,000 miles in 2 hours. Flying on the crane feather boat consumed much less spiritual power than sword kinesis flight. Moreover, when driving the crane feather boat, one only needed to inject spiritual power into it, and did not need to consume spiritual power. It was more suitable for continuous flight. The crane feather boat also had many fatal flaws. Its function was too simple, and it was especially fragile. Although it was an upper-grade Tier 2 Dharma artifact, its strength was weaker than most low-grade Tier 2 Dharma artifacts. In a battle of magical powers, it was a fragile object. An early-stage Foundation establishment cultivator could easily injure it with a casual sword gleam. This Dharma artifact was only suitable for transportation. If it was taken out in battle, the chances of it being destroyed were extremely high. Of course, this crane feather boat still had a lot of room for growth. After studying it thoroughly, he could improve it. For example, he could improve the tool patterns, replace stronger materials, and add some other functions. These were all things that he could work on in the future. The most important thing now was to understand the refining method of the crane feather boat. After seeing the refining method of the crane feather boat, he focused all his attention on the crane feather boat and was not interested in the other 3 Dharma artifacts. It would take too much time for him to refine the crane feather boat alone. It was time to let Beiyuan out. This shop was the territory of the White Fox tribe. Although there were no surveillance devices in the shop, it was inevitable that there would be people watching. If someone suddenly appeared, it would be hard to explain. To be safe, he changed into the attire of a rogue cultivator and left Wild Goose Market. He found a quiet place and let out his clone, Beiyuan. After that, the two of them returned to Wild Goose Market's Wu Weapon Workshop and began to study the refining method of the crane feather boat. There were 2 main materials for the crane feather boat: upper grade Tier 2 crane demon bird's wings and tail feathers, and light cloud wood. Light cloud wood was an upper grade Tier 2 spiritual wood. In terms of strength, it was probably the weakest among Tier 2 spiritual wood. Of course, light cloud wood was not completely useless. Its biggest advantage was that it was very light. Its density was not much higher than feathers. The reason why the crane feather boat could float in the air was mainly because of the crane feather boat's unique tool patterns. The crane feather boat's buoyancy was not very strong. It also needed to carry people, so it had to reduce the weight of the materials as much as possible. Therefore, light cloud wood was used as the main material. The value of the crane feather boat and light cloud wood lay in the characteristics of the materials. Therefore, during the refining process, it was necessary to preserve the characteristics of the materials as much as possible. Smelting and forging were not necessary. They could only remove the impurities in the raw materials and shape the light cloud wood into a suitable shape. These tasks did not require high attainments in refining weapons. With Beiyuan's attainments in refining weapons that were close to upper grade Tier 2, it was not difficult to handle these tasks. Wang Daoyuan's task was to inscribe tool patterns on the light cloud wood and the crane feather boat. It was not difficult to inscribe formation patterns on the light cloud wood, but it was difficult to inscribe formation patterns on the crane feather boat. Each feather was very thin and not very strong. The chisel knife was also very sharp. With a little force, it could cut the feather into pieces. The difficulty of inscribing tool patterns on the crane feather boat could be imagined. Finally, the crane feather boat had to be assembled and placed on the light cloud wood. There were 5 sets of crane feather boat materials sent by Beiyuan. As long as he handed over 1 crane feather boat, he would receive 3,000 spiritual stones as a reward. With the help of Beiyuan's doppelganger, Wang Daoyuan was under much less pressure. He only failed twice. On the 3rd try, he successfully refined a crane feather boat. From beginning to end, it only took slightly more than a month. Chapter 293. The White Fox tribe gave him 5 sets of materials and only asked for a crane feather boat. Naturally, the reward was not high, only 3,000 spirit stones. An upper-grade level, 2 magic weapon with special functions was worth more than 10,000 spirit stones. The 2 level, 2 blacksmiths spent more than a month and only earned 3,000 spirit stones. It was a big loss. However, the refining method of the crane feather boat and the tool pattern to assist in flight were not something that could be measured with a few thousand spirit stones. He was not in a hurry to refine the remaining 2 sets of materials. The current crane feather boat had too many flaws and it would not be interesting to refine it. It was better to refine it after some improvement. Furthermore, he promised the White Fox tribe to keep it a secret. If he used the crane feather boat outside, he would offend them. Although the White Fox tribe was not a powerful force, it would be easy for them to deal with him. After refining the crane feather boat, the next step was to refine the jasper hairpin. The main material of the jasper hairpin was not rare. Jasper was a common upper-grade level, 2 jade material. Its strength was not low, but it was not high either. The other party had more requirements for the functions of the jasper hairpin, but the refining method was already given in the jade slip, so there was no need for him to think about it. The tool pattern was a very basic type. The only valuable thing was the way to deal with the conflict between the tool patterns. With the way to deal with the conflict between the tool patterns, he would be able to give the tool many functions in the future. He spent half a month and only failed once. On his second try, he successfully refined a upper-grade level, 2 jasper hairpin. He was given 5 sets of materials and the remaining 3 sets were for him. The reward was 2,000 spirit stones. The shield was the least technical. It was just a hard material. After refining the metal material and forging it into shape, all he had to do was to inscribe the defensive array pattern. He was given 3 sets of materials, but Wang Daoyuan succeeded on his first try. He only took 3 days to complete the refinement. The reward was 1,000 spirit stones, which was a big profit. The long sword was called the Autumn Water Sword. It was a water-attributed magic weapon and there was nothing special about the tool pattern. However, water-attributed longswords generally did not have much lethality. Water-attributed and wood-attributed cultivators would not use flying swords as their main magic weapon. This Autumn Water Sword was a fancy job in terms of materials. It completely smelted water-attributed materials, extracted their essence, and smelted them into relatively strong non-attributed metal materials, forging a metal longsword with water-attributed spiritual energy as the main element. Although the lethality of the Autumn Water Sword forged in this way was much weaker than that of a Goldfire attribute flying sword, it was much stronger than ordinary water attribute magic tools. This kind of refining method of destroying the main material, extracting its essence, and then injecting it into other materials required a high level of purification of the material. It was often used to refine magic tools of the water and wood attribute. This kind of refining was not considered rare, but Wang Daoyuan's 2 Tier 3 legacy sets did not have it. Refining the Autumn Water Sword could be considered as making up for one of his shortcomings in refining tools. It wasn't too difficult to refine. He used 5 or 6 days and failed once to refine the Autumn Water Sword. There were a total of 3 sets of materials, and he only had 1 set left. The reward was 1,000 spirit stones. The 4 magical tools were all completed in 2.5 months. The reward was 9,000 spirit stones. He did not earn many spirit stones, but the materials and refining methods were very valuable. Wang Daoyuan informed Biying through Fu Cheng to come and collect the magical tools. A day later, Biying came to the workshop with 2 half-demon women who were even prettier than the previous one. Wang Daoyuan handed the 4 magical tools to her. She took them, checked them, and put them in her storage bag. Biying smiled. I didn't expect Wu Daoyu to be so fast in refining weapons. In just 2 months, you've refined 4 magical tools. This is the reward I promised Daoyu. With that, she handed a storage bag to Wang Daoyuan. He took the storage bag and put it away without even looking at it. He smiled. This time, I was able to refine 4 magical tools so quickly because of my friend's help. She had brought 2 half-demon beauties with her because she wanted Bai Sheng. There were definitely people from the White Fox tribe watching the shop. Bai Sheng could not hide from her in the Wu clan's workshop. However, Biying was good at acting. After hearing Wang Daoyuan's words, her eyes lit up and she quickly asked, "Is Wu Daoyu's friend here? Can I meet him?" Bai Sheng walked out of the workshop. Beiying immediately went up to him and asked enthusiastically, "May I know Daoyu's name? Do you have a Dao companion?" Bai Xing smiled. "I'm Bai Sheng. Greetings, Daoyu. I'm focused on cultivation and have no intention of getting married." Beiying looked disappointed. "That's a pity. My name is Beiying. I have the same surname as Daoyu. We're family." Wang Daoyuan was speechless. Bai Xing's surname was Bai. The White Fox tribe's surname was Bai because their ancestors were white foxes. Half-demons had the surname Chui. Beiying did not give up and continued to attack Bai Sheng. After a long time, Bai Sheng was still unmoved. Beiying had no choice but to give up and leave the shop with the two half-demon women. Bai Sheng continued to reforge the 7 long swords that he had obtained from killing people. His refining skills were very close to second-tier superior grade. He needed more practice. Wang Daoyuan himself was studying the crane feather boat, trying to improve its refining method. 3 days later, Beiying came again. She walked straight into the shop and saw Wang Daoyuan. She smiled. "Wu Daoyu, I'm here to disturb you again." Wang Daoyuan smiled. "I'm very grateful that Miss Bai is here to take care of my business. There's no need to disturb me." Beiying handed a storage bag to Wang Daoyuan and said solemnly, "This is no small matter. Daoyu, please don't tell anyone about it." Wang Daoyuan nodded. "Don't worry, Miss Bai. I know the rules. Since I've promised to keep it a secret, I won't tell anyone." After Beiying left, Wang Daoyuan opened his storage pouch. Inside, there were 2 gourds, some high-grade tier 2 materials, and a jade slip. Wang Daoyuan took out the jade slip and kept it in the space of the spiritual pearl. He handed it to his clone to check. There was nothing left in the jade slip. The jade slip recorded the refining method of a gourd magic weapon. This magic weapon was called the Demon Subduing Gourd. Using divine sense and spiritual power to activate the gourd, one could subdue demonic beasts. This magic weapon was not strange. If it was south of Mount Huiyan, it would be normal for someone to use this gourd. But this was the north of the mountain, the territory of the demon race. Whoever dared to use this magic weapon would be hunted to death by the demon race. Could it be that the White Fox tribe wanted to cause trouble? The territory of the White Fox tribe was about 10,000 miles northeast of Clear Glass City. It was not far from the periphery of the sky/mountain range. Although the half-demons were neutral, they did not allow outsiders to enter their territory. Therefore, the outside world did not know much about the situation of the White Fox tribe. Maybe the White Fox tribe was threatened by demonic beasts, or maybe they had the same idea as the Wang family and wanted to explore the periphery of the sky/mountain range. This matter had nothing to do with him. The White Fox tribe was more than 5,000 miles north of Mount Huiyan. The Wang family did not intend to go beyond Mount Huiyan and expand to the north of the mountain. No matter how much trouble the White Fox tribe caused, it would not affect the Wang family. He only wanted to do business. Why should he care about the White Fox tribe? However, these 2 gourds were a pleasant surprise. To refine a weapon, he needed to take out the gourd seeds. Now, he could add a new type of spiritual plant to the space of the spiritual pearl. Moreover, the weapon pattern technique required to refine the demon subduing gourd were all things that Wang Daoyuan did not know. He was willing to do such a good thing for free. Moreover, there was a reward of 5,000 spirit stones. You're tuning into the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.